Okay, so we're live. Hello, everyone. Merry Christmas, happy holidays, whatever it is that you say out there, because you can say whatever you want. You don't have to not say Merry Christmas. And welcoming my usual Mr. Man, Mr. Independent Man. How you going, mate?
G'day. Merry Christmas or happy whatever the fuck you say. So you don't offend people.
And hopefully I've muted that off, which is always a problem I have at the beginning of my streams. But okay, what did Santa bring you, mate? Anything good?
I don't do that stuff. This is my first Christmas in Australia for 15, 16 years. So I'm used to not really having Christmas.
Okay.
So to me, it's Sunday. That's it. And I went and hung out with cousins and my parents and my brother. So that was pretty good. They're pretty cool people. But other than that, yeah, we don't do presents thing. I don't know, it seems kind of redundant at this age.
Yeah, no, that's understandable. Yeah. We're a bit sort of into Christmas and stuff. So, yeah, we have the big lunch and have the family over. And fortunately, we all get on. You know, there's no animosity or trips to the hospital or anything like that. And people get together in major arguments and stuff, and everyone controls their drinking pretty well. And so it was pretty good. And Mrs. Orsum made the fucking awesome pork, and the crackling was just fantastic.
Ooh, yeah, we had a bit of that. Yeah, that's good. I mean, my same deal here. My parents and the cousins we go and see, that they only live sort of 15 minutes away so long, so it's a good day out, good excuse to get together, I think.
Yeah, I think that's the main thing about it. I mean, I assume that you're like me, that you're an atheist. You don't have any you don't do Christmas or the Jesus aspect of it. It's it's more just an opportunity to get together with family.
Jeebus. Yeah, I don't believe in any of that stuff. If you're in Melbourne, you probably wouldn't want to go to midnight mass anyway. You could have wound up victim of a terror event. You see that?
Yeah. I just saw news reports of it on the TV a couple of days ago. Did you read some stuff on it, or?
Yeah, just sort of briefly. Surprise, surprise. So for viewers maybe in the US don't know this, but our immigration minister was lambasted in the media for suggesting that there are particular groups of people who don't integrate well into our society, and they happen to be Lebanese Muslims that were brought here under Malcolm Fraser in about 1976, 77. And because something like 20 out of the last 25 convicted terrorists in Australia, that people who were either conspiring to carry out terrorist attacks in Australia or trying to leave to go overseas and fight for ISIS or one of those organisations, 20 out of 25 of them were Lebanese Muslims. So a terror plot was uncovered in Melbourne to blow up a cathedral that usually they have a mass of about 1,400 people or something like that. I think it was huge. And guess what? 4 out of the 5 blokes arrested were Lebanese Muslims. The problem was back in 77 or 76 it was, Fraser was told by his own cabinet, don't take these people in. The idea where they were going to take in Lebanese Christians, but the Lebanese Christians didn't want to go, and so they ended up taking these Lebanese Muslims who were basically nomads, almost living up in the fucking hills somewhere, illiterate in their own languages, had no skills, nothing like that. So of course they came to Australia, they didn't integrate, and hasn't turned out well. And of course all the lefties got up in arms. This is about a month ago or so, when Dutton said, look, there's a problem. And he said there was a mistake in 1976, and the own cabinet papers say so, because these papers they get released after 30 years.
Yeah. What's the name of what's the girl, the Labor Party woman, the one that's of Arab descent? She fucking exploded when he said, I've forgotten what her name was. Anna, can't fucking remember. Yeah.
I just remember the Greens losing their shit, as they usually fucking do because they're idiots. But
I
mean,
I couldn't help but have a laugh. Sorry, they were also. It wasn't just the cathedral. They were going to target Flinders Station and Federation Square. I had to have a joke. I said, Federation Square, you fucking blow that up, go right ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a bit of a shit show. But I think the point was about the Lebanese Muslim problem is that the government, Malcolm Fraser basically went against the advice of his own cabinet, let these people in. They let so many tens of thousands in, and then they shut down the program because it was already looked like being a problem. They shut down the program. The government admitted it was a mistake, and yet for the today's immigration minister to repeat out loud that the government made a mistake, they even said they made a mistake, is politically incorrect. And this is how fucking stupid the left are, that they can't even admit that, perhaps certain groups of people don't integrate well. Yeah, because they're so, they got to stick up for every oppressed victim fucking class that's out there. But keep doubling down, dickheads.
Mate, your video that you did earlier today, I only just got to watch the first 5 minutes or so. So you had Brendan, what's his name? O'Brien?
Brendan O'Neill.
Brendan O'Neill. Sorry.
Brendan O'Neill.
Yeah. Now I really sort of agreed with what he was saying at the beginning, but the girl sort of had a sort of pretty surly, shitty look on her face. And I only sort of had time just there to catch the very beginning of what she responded with. What did she say back to him about
she was trying to say that the Human Rights Commission tries to basically that they try to conciliate these matters, and that the idea of it is not to prosecute people, but to, because the idea is people are supposed to sit down across the table, and if you've offended someone, they can say to you, "Oh, do you understand why this is offensive?" And this is the stated aim. But of course, it's not like that. It actually turns out to be a bit of extortion, because she even admits in her reply that what happens is they end up paying a small fine or something. You end up paying a fine, so the thing goes away, as did those university students. So, and it actually, I've cut heaps out of that. That whole clip goes for about 20 minutes. Yeah. And she goes on more and more. And there's a bit later on when he goes into more depth, and she's just they go, "What do you think about that?" And she's like, I just think it's wrong. That's it. Because he goes on to say, and it's such a good point, that freedom of speech is the friend of every oppressed minority in history. Because if oppressed minorities never had freedom of speech, they'd never be able to get rights. So gay rights are a result of gay people exercising their free speech to get rights. I mean, it's the same for anyone. I mean, feminism, you go down the list, whatever group it is, it's because of free speech and their right to speak up and speak against the orthodoxy that they get the rights. And I think it just goes to show you what I think it demonstrates, it's not said in the clip, is that once they get to this position where they have equal rights, then they want to be the authoritarians.
Yeah.
Don't they? So to me, what it says is they're not an oppressed class anymore. If you're trying to oppress other people, you're not an oppressed class anymore. You're now the authoritarians.
Yep. And the fact that you would pay a fine, obviously, it sends a pretty clear message that, expressing your opinions and that is going to be punished. Therefore, it's criminalized in some way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you go watch the rest of it, he does a great bit on some guy in the audience. It's at a different time, and he says, what about some guy in the audience says, "Oh, we're hearing about quotas for women in politics. Why don't we just leave it to merit?" And he just says, "Yeah, this is ridiculous. What this is saying, that women are too pathetic to get political positions on their own. It's infantilizing." He just absolutely rips them. It's fucking beautiful.
Well, given that Q&A is generally loaded with, hand-picked lefties, I would have loved to have seen the looks on their faces basically when somebody comes out and says, it should be just left to merit and it's infantilizing women. They just would have fucking all been aghast with shock.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because there was because even in the Liberal Party, supposedly conservatives, the Kelly O'Dwyer's on the one where he talks about the women, and she's arguing that more women should be in politics, and she makes this stupid argument, and it's a sexist argument, that the parliament should reflect our society. Well, what does that mean? Should we have one disabled person and 3 Muslims and 5 Aboriginals? I mean, is that what it's supposed to be? It's identity politics 101, which is what the right is supposed to be against. Why is it? And it's an absolutely sexist statement. You think about it. Like, let's say our parliament and Senate combined is about 2/3 men, 1/3 women. Now, to say that men can't adequately represent the rights of women is a sexist statement. It's saying men can't govern for the interests of women. It's an unbelievably sexist thing to say. Imagine if you said that the women in parliament can't represent the rights of men. It's a sexist statement. And by the way, how is it that we have family courts completely stacked against men? How is it that we spend 80% of our government on women's diseases, even though they live longer, have better health outcomes across the board? Tell you what, for this patriarchal fucking misogynist government that we have, it absolutely fucks men over. So the idea that we need women or that men can't represent women is absurd, and it's a sexist fucking point of view. No one ever points that out.
Yeah, sorry, if I were hit with the percentage of women in politics should be reflected by society, I guess my initial thought would be, well, how is it not? Isn't it a reflection of society? How many women are actually willing to pursue a political career as opposed to men? And that you actually create affirmative action programs and that, or simply put women into positions of power, not through merit, but because of their genitalia, then that's artificially distorting what would normally be the normal course of things. In other words, the reflection of society, as it were.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I think one of the great points is that I think one of the Liberal ministers pointed this out. He said, but of course the left and the people who argue for these quotas in government and everything are against gay marriage. But what is gay marriage except the ultimate sort of equality, reflection? I'm talking about the argument against gay marriage, which is it's always one man and one woman. It's sort of reflection of society, is it not? It's perfect, 50-50. That's what traditional marriage is. It's perfect equality. But for some reason they're against that one. But as we know, on the left, you don't have to have principles.
Well, I think one of the things, you've heard me speak before that I don't have a problem with gay people, getting married as such. I'm not convinced about them having kids, to be honest, and I don't accept the arguments that, as long as the child is loved, to me, that doesn't wash with me. But a person's, I've said it before, a person's sexual preference, and they want to marry that person, I've got no issue with that. But no matter how you cut it, they're always going to be a very small percentage of the population. They can try and normalise it and make it out to be 1 in 10 or 1 in 3 or whatever they fucking say. But the data basically says that, 98% of men will be heterosexual and 96% of women will be heterosexual. They're always going to be this tiny minority. So, again, I don't agree with them having an inflated sense of power, or that they should be the ones calling the shots on behalf of the rest of society. Not saying that we should be the ones calling the shots on behalf of them either, but I think, I believe anyway, that we've really reached a place where they're afforded human dignity and treated largely like anybody else. And at those times that they are discriminated against, it's not any worse than anyone else that's discriminated against for being fat, for being stupid, for having red hair and freckles, for being an arsehole and not getting along with their work colleagues and school and work, and people can be, I suppose, made fun of or harassed or excluded for lots and lots of different reasons. And I don't think homosexuals are picked on anymore, or transgender people anymore, so much than anyone else. Transgenders possibly because, they do make such a public display in how they dress, that they are going to get funny looks, because it's so, basically most of them don't carry it well. They're effectively just cross dressers.
Yeah, that's a polite way of putting it, isn't it? I mean, some of them just don't. There's just no way that they're even coming close to pulling off. As you say, I mean, they're literally blokes putting on a bit of makeup and acting effeminate. And this is supposed to convince us. We're supposed to take you seriously and treat you as though you're a female. It's not going to happen. Yeah. It's just not.
But I think in that sense too, they need to take some responsibility themselves for, I suppose, sort of going down that road. If that makes them feel comfortable, that's fine, and they'll be accepted by a lot of people. But they have to accept that there's going to be a lot of other people that are either going to look at them funny. I know personally, I would never harass a transgender person. I'd never give them a hard time, And I think the people in Australia that would are sort of quite few and far between these days.
Yeah, well, I mean, I really like gay people. I just hate faggots, and you have to be a certain age to understand that statement, don't you? It's
I understand it. You have to be. What you're saying is, if I was sitting here and I was talking like this, and I said to you, "Oh, well, actually, Indy, women are my friends and everything, but actually, I'm gay," right? You'd think it was just a sexual preference, whereas if I was here and I was just being loud and super gay about everything, it's really flamboyant. Look at me, I'm a homosexual.
Yeah, right? you must come from gay land where they have the gay accent.
Exactly. See, that's the part that I don't like, and that's what you mean by faggot. Yeah. This pretense, this attention seeking, and that's a dislikable trait in any person, no matter what their sexuality is.
Yeah, well, I extend the word faggot to straight people who act like faggots, because they are. I mean, men, especially in this day and age, there's plenty of straight faggots around. The way they act, but again, if I was to throw that out to someone in their 20s, they don't. I've been on. I think I was on a live stream with 8-Bit, and he was at 8-Bit. It may have been. He's in his late 20s, and for him, the word fag has never been anything other than a derogatory statement against gay people. Whereas when I was in high school, maybe the same for you, even really early, 12, 13 years old, a fag meant weak, lame, like your mate threw a ball in the playground and he threw like a girl and you say, "Oh, you fag." Didn't mean gay. It meant lame, pathetic, girly.
Yeah.
That's what it meant.
Yeah. I mean, personally, I do think it's quite a derogatory term. Obviously, that those that know that it originates from, kindling of wood or faggots of wood, effectively, that we used basically to light the fires that would burn the homosexuals. Right?
No, burn the faggots, you mean?
Yeah, but I could see how, to me, it's more derogatory Well, not so much derogatory, but I think those that use it perhaps don't understand its origins, and therefore they're thoughtless or ignorant about it. But it's more, calling someone a putter or, gay lord or I suppose these different other insults that you may throw at a homosexual person. A more, or call them an uphill gardener or bum puncher or whatever. It's going to just, whereas faggot is more fucking burn you, burn you to death type connotation. So it's stronger.
It's pretty nasty. But I mean, I think you've seen Milo Yiannopoulos say, he'll say, "Oh, fucking gay people, they're such faggots," and that's what he means. Like, he doesn't like faggots either, and he means the same thing. He means the sort of politically correct, far left, effeminate fags.
Yeah,
and that's what he's talking about as well.
He does do his tour was called The Dangerous Faggot, though, right?
Yeah.
But it's like any word, it gets used a lot, and the more it's used, it loses its potency and currency when it's overcooked.
Well, I think Bill Burr made an interesting point about this. I think it was either it may have been a stand-up bit, or it may have been on his podcast, where he said that, when it came to like Bruce Jenner then becoming Caitlyn Jenner, and you couldn't even you weren't even allowed, the politically correct people, you weren't even allowed to go, "Oh, geez, that's a bit of a shock to the system." I mean, straight away you're a transphobe if you you can imagine, like, we come on stream and people don't know, but when we hang out before stream, we often show our faces to each other. We both know what we look like. And if you were to come on and just say that from now on you have to call me Georgina, and you had makeup on and you'd done all your hair and basically identifying as a woman, and you'd had a boob job, I mean, I'm now supposed to just go, "Oh, okay, Georgina." Like, I wouldn't have any questions. I wouldn't say, "Wait a minute, I've just got to have to take that in. I have a few questions. What happened?" No, like, you weren't even allowed to sort of say, "Geez, we didn't even get to say goodbye to Bruce. How did and wow, can we even register some surprise?" No. And he gave another example, because he lives in California. He was in some place in California where it's fairly well known sort of gay hangout restaurant area where a lot of gay people hang out. And he's waiting outside of the restaurant. His wife is inside with his wife's mother paying the bill, and he's outside waiting on the sidewalk with his wife's friend, and they're just standing there chatting. And then he turns around and there's like two guys kissing, like literally 2 feet away from him. And his first reaction is to sort of he didn't say anything. He just sort of pulled back, like, it was kind of a shock to him. And the wife's friend immediately jumped on him and said, "Phobic." It's like, no, that's a normal and natural response. Like, we're all supposed to just, what's been accepted as normal for thousands of years, that's now become, what's been accepted as abnormal for 1,000 years is now being normalized in the past decade. And we're all supposed to just adapt like that. Yeah. It's fucking ridiculous. It's not how people operate.
Yeah. Now, you're breaking up a touch, and I'm actually wondering if it's something that's actually happening at my end. Mate, can I...
Let's ask the chat. Then.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, can I just leave you to speak to the people in chat for about 10 seconds while I go out into the lounge room? Because I said to the other guys, look, you're probably okay to watch YouTube, et cetera, but I've got a funny feeling it might be interfering.
Righto.
So I'm just going to go and speak to him about that, mate. I'll be 10 seconds. I'll be as quick as I can.
I will speak to the people. What do you want to hear, people? You want to hear a song? You want to hear a poem? Eh? What is it? Sounds fine to you, Gunny. What the fuck would you know? You're so old you can't even hear anyway. You're breaking up. Well, that's of no use to me, Tazimus. Couldn't care less.
Yeah. So they're not.
You guys are.
They're not watching you.
Yeah,
Not that.
Pretty much everyone in the chat is saying it's fine.
Okay.
Gunny reckons it's fine.
All right, rock and roll.
Yeah.
Oh, if it's fine, it's fine. I just thought I lost a few keywords when you were speaking before, but seems to be working fine at the moment now that I've walked back in, and the fam out there are not using YouTube, so they're all good.
Righto.
All right. Okay, so shall we get into this sort of video critiquing thing and see if we can actually make it work?
Let's do it.
Yeah, so I'll just let everybody know that I'll be fumbling my way through attempting to screen share and sound share, which actually Google Hangouts is really hopeless at doing, and I actually had to externally wire up my mixing desk to sort of hopefully make this work.
Mm-hmm.
But the first thing I need to do is a bit of screen sharing here. I'm going to try entire screen. Now, when we tried this out before, mate, you might have got a bit of a delay. That might have been what was perhaps happening. Right, so I pulled up 3 of his videos. Now, I haven't really watched these either. I sort of watched the first minute sort of each one. He's got one here that I haven't watched at all called 5 Awesome Things About Consent.
Awesome.
Trump is rape culture. And 5 sad things about angry white men. Which one do you think takes your fancy, mate?
Let's hear the. I really want to hear how great consent is. You see what he's doing here too, by the way, with all the fucking. He thinks he's doing that viral marketing strategy where, hey, here's 5 things you didn't know about toilet paper. Hey, 10 people, 10 people with the worst nose jobs you've ever seen. All of that kind of sensationalist bullshit. And by the way, Steve Shives has over 50 Gaz, and he gets less daily views than you and me. That's how shithouse he is.
I noticed that he's got 65,000 subscribers, and yeah, he'll get like 600 views or something in the first day, and stuff like that. Which kind of leads me to the idea that a lot of people subscribe to his channel just like when you keep an eye on somebody, and you want access to their material just in case you want to rip it apart or whatever. But it's like a lot of people actually don't watch it. Maybe
well, I was just going to say,
screen.
You want to make the screen. Yeah, there you go.
Yep.
That's fucking nice. Yep.
Beautiful. What were you going to say, mate, just before we go ahead?
I was just going to make the point that a lot of people always concentrate on the channel's success is how many subscribers they have, but you'll find that a lot of people with big subscriber counts don't get that many views. And I think while subscribers is a measure of success, I think with things. And if both of those metrics aren't growing, and especially in Shive's case, I think if you look at his view counts have been shrinking for best part of a year or more, your channel's really going downhill.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I really gauge the success of my videos really on views, because if I've got 14,000 views, and I get 5,000 views on a video, and then I've still got 14,000 subscribers, was what I meant to say at the beginning, and I get 2,000 on a video, well, it's clear to me which video is the more successful one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and it's,
exactly.
The subscriber count hasn't changed. So to me, views is effectively where it's at. Now, I know that the title can be responsible for getting a lot of people in, like this video, for example, of Shives. It's the 5 awesome things about consent. It's the title that's kind of sparked your interest in it,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But all right, shall we proceed? Hopefully we're going to have sound on this, guys. So let's have a look.
There's been a lot of talk in the mainstream media this year about the importance of consent.
And you just jump in anytime you like, mate. I'll be on the pause on the ready, right?
Yep.
And it means that we could pause it in stupid places like this and see.
I just like to say, look at the fucking. This guy is so beta. He look at the weakness in those shoulders. Look at him.
Yeah.
I mean, he hasn't done a fucking shoulder press. I don't know, ever. He doesn't do any exercise. He just screams beta male.
Yeah. I'd have to agree with that.
And that is terrific because consent is not only important, it's pretty great.
I don't know about great. I think it's important. Obviously, if you don't get consent, well, then you're probably like raping someone. But this whole idea that consent is great, it's
it's not great. It's kind of essential in terms of rape not happening. But of course, the problem is how do you get consent? And of course, we're going to hear here that it's this unwieldy fucking interaction, whereas most of the time, 90% of the time, consent is non-verbal.
Yeah.
But let's see this dickhead implode.
Yeah, it was just what you were saying on that last stream when you talked about how these guys don't seem to understand the concept of body language. And sure, there's guys out there that try to ignore that and all of that to get their way and all of that. But most guys are pretty reasonable and understand that if the woman's feeling uncomfortable and all of that, it's the woman feeling uncomfortable that'll probably lead them to actually verbalize the concept of consent.
Yeah,
they will ask, Whereas, I mean, in most of the situations I've been in my life, consent was an unspoken, felt, sperm of the moment type of reaction to whatever was going on.
Yeah, and you don't imagine if you had to ask for consent, there'd just be. I mean, this is the world that they seem. I don't know if it's intentional or not. They want to create a world where there's going to be far less sex. There's going to be far less just interaction between the sexes because like if you take it to the extreme of that law in Nottinghamshire, where I think the wording of the law was something like unwanted advances.
Right?
Oh, it could be a hate.
Engagement.
Unwanted engagement.
Yeah.
So
engagement is interaction. Saying is that seat taken? Can I sit there? Is a form of engagement.
Yeah. So I mean, this is the world where basically you need a verbal sort of go ahead from a woman just to alone have sex, and that's not going to happen. I mean, as we know, men approach women, the old 80-20 rule seems to work in person, and then online it's even worse. It's even more sort of magnified to a 95-5 sort of situation. So if men are sort of put off by the repercussions of approaching women, then you're going to end up like Japan. You're going to have it where you got 1/3 to up to half of young people are not even interested in the opposite sex.
Because it's like just culturally too hard for them. Is that what you mean? Because their biological urges must be there like anyone else's.
Yeah, they've kind of. Japan's an interesting case, but it's basically a culture in decline. It's a population in decline, and a culture in decline. Women. The funny thing about Japan is that people often say, "Oh, well, it's such a working life is so hard, and they work long hours and everything," but it doesn't really ring true because Japan has the lowest female workforce participation rate and the second lowest birth rate. I think South Korea just went past them a year or so ago in the first world modern economies. So they don't work as much as pretty much anyone else in the first world. So they don't work as much as, say, American women or Australian women, and they have even less children. So there's something
that's odd because there's got to be another factor there because, in Western society, it seems to be that the reason women aren't having children or at least how it's put forward to us is that it's because they're out having careers and they're making that life choice. It seems odd that if the Japanese women, aren't in the workforce and they're staying home and being looked after their men, why aren't they fucking sprogging out the babies? You've lived there. What do you think it is?
I think for the younger generation, they look at the lives of their parents. Now, the generation of Japanese after the Second World War and right up through, so they'd be sort of, I guess, my parents' age, baby boomers born after the war and sort of coming of age in the 70s, was a boom time in Japan. 70s, 80s, right up through to the bubble pops in, say, 89, 90, around there. So it was boom times in Japan, and pretty much you've had stagnation for 25 years. And that old model of people working hard and getting ahead and huge jumps in standard of living, if you think about Japan, was demolished after the Second World War, essentially. And that all stopped. And the young men look at the salary man, as they call it over there, the salary man treadmill, where you fucking kill yourself for 60, 70 hours a week. And they go, it's not worth it, because those gains in standards of living have gone and have actually gone backwards. And it's even harder to support a family. And so, again, it's one of those, it's not unlike in the West where where men are looking at marriage and looking at the cost benefit and going, I don't think so. There's much skewed to the cost and not the benefit. And in Japan, it's the same thing, but it's not feminism and how you get fucked in the family court and those types of things. It's the fact that you work your ass off, but the promotions aren't there. The wages have stagnated for 30 years. Yeah. And there's just not that upward mobility that there used to be.
If a Japanese guy is thinking, well, I'm not really making enough money to support a family, so fuck it, and the women aren't in the workforce, how, if they're a robust welfare system, how are these women looking after themselves if they're, one, A, not working, and two, not able to sponge onto a wealthy man, because a wealthy man goes, oh, fuck it, I'm not fucking looking after you.
Well, when I say that they have a lowest workforce participation for women in the first world, not in the world, in the first world, that still means that a lot of women work.
Okay. Yep.
Right. Not as many as in Australia, but there's still, it's not like 3/4 of women are staying home. But I tell you what, it's very common for women in their 30s and 40s to live at home with their parents. Completely common. If you're not married, or if you're not married and you don't have a serious boyfriend, living at home with your parents is completely fine and socially acceptable if you're a girl. Absolutely. There's no but the reason, one of the other reasons I sort of didn't get to, which for the men, on the men's side, because they see this sort of ladder to nowhere in the workforce, what they've decided to do, instead of work their ass off, they went, fuck it, and they've pulled back. And they work part-time jobs, and they just work enough jobs to pay the rent, eat their food, play their video games or whatever their hobby is. And that's all they want to, and that's all they do, because that's all they need. They just need to subsist. And so these are what are called the herbivore men. You may have heard this term, but they refer to them. And so because all the MGTOWs always, look at the herbivore men, they're pulling back. But what they don't point out is that there are even more women pulling back. And I suggest to you, which gets back to the original point, which is that when men don't approach women don't step up to fill the void. It's not like women go, oh, men aren't approaching us, we better go and approach them. They pull back as well, because if men don't approach, nothing happens most of the time. And that's Japan is kind of a canary in the coal mine, really.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the women, you hear it in the Western thing. There's no decent men out there. I can't find a decent man. So they're still in that mindset of, waiting for the guy to come and sweep her off her feet, basically, and, charm her.
And did you? I had a live stream with 8-Bit. Did you hear that one? Because he's a dating coach.
Yeah,
he was saying that. I thought it was interesting what he said. That he said women would, like, they would ask him, like, what do you do? And he says, oh, I'm a dating coach. And they would say, oh, I'm really glad that you do that. Men need a lot of help with dating. Like, it's so condescending and arrogant. Like, women have become so arrogant that they don't think that they have to work on anything about themselves, right? It's all men. Oh, yeah, I'm really glad men are doing that because they need to be told how to date a woman, And it's like, well, do you think that some of that could be that you're not all you're cracked up to be as well?
Yeah. Oh, look, the only women in life that I've ever heard complain about not being able to find a guy are ones that I've looked at and thought, that's hardly fucking surprising. Have a look at you, have a listen to you, listen to your attitude. It's no wonder you can't find a guy.
Exactly. Every time you think, have you got a mirror in the house? Go home and have a fucking look.
Exactly. That's where I was going to go with it, because men are so into physical attraction and all of that in the initial stages, at least when it comes to wanting to even talk to a woman in the first place. And the women that I've heard say that are basically of a mindset that I'm a fairy tale princess, and you're actually looking at it and going, actually, you're a fucking tuskless walrus. It's washed up on the beach somewhere. That's actually what you look like.
It was funny today. I was having Christmas lunch with the relatives, and there was just a couple of sort of tag along people. I guess they didn't have any family things, and there was a woman, single mother with a kid. I guess she was she maybe late 20s, and someone mentioned to me, I didn't ask her anything, but someone just said, I think it was my mother said to me, her boyfriend pissed off on her before she even had the baby. And it was the woman is the victim. And I said to my mother, I said, well, you know what? If women are entitled to have abortions without anybody's approval, then men are entitled to have financial abortions and fuck off if they don't want the kid. And she goes, yeah, well, I don't know if the man wanted the kid. And I said, yeah, well, see, don't just assume that it was an asshole who pissed off, and abdicated his responsibility.
Holding the baby, so to speak.
Yeah. Complete fucking cunt for all you know. You have no idea. So,
so anyway, after you fucked her,
yeah, she was. I don't know. I've got to say, I've been home in Australia for 10 months now, and I can't even muster the enthusiasm to try and date women here. They're just fucking awful.
Yeah. I mean, I'm in that fortunate situation where, I've been with the same woman for a decade now, and we've just been together. So I'm not on the market anyway. So it's not something I have to deal with, And it can't get easier as you get older as well. When you're young and everyone's single and the hormones are raging and the hormones are raging in the women too, I guess it's a lot easier. And then there was a lot more, let's just have sex and the next day I can fuck you off and no one's hung up about it. Whereas now, when you get into your 40s, late 30s, 40s, even where I am now, early 50s, if I were out on the market, every potential woman is going to be looking for a hooks in type situation. There'd be very few out there that are just looking for a casual, bit of fun.
I got to be honest with single women with kids in their 30s, and they kind of disgust me. I look at them and I'm like, do you really? You've got some arrogance to think that I would be actually interested in taking on you and your child. I mean, you're that fucking. Are that desperate? I guess there are plenty of guys that are, but they kind of like I kind of like look at them with contempt as if this is not going to happen.
Well, one of the big problems, having been there a couple of times in my late 30s, early 40s with women that did have kids, because there was a lot of that around at that time. When you're in that age group, you'll get a lot of it. Yeah. And I got put off really quick by basically the fact that what she'll do is it's right to put her children first and all of that, but what will happen is the kid will be a little shit to you because you're not actually their father. You're not actually their discipline figure. You're just a float-through boyfriend, like the half a dozen float-through boyfriends that the kid has seen already in the last couple of years, and basically will give you a hard time. And then if you try to speak up or you know, not even discipline the child because it's not your child, but if you speak out against that, she will then make her child the authority figure over you. So you're being fucking bullied and told what to do by a fucking 9-year-old, right? And she just doesn't get it at all because all she can do is put her children first by effectively putting herself first. And that's like, oh, fucking out the door, see you later. Oh, so, you know, I can't find a decent man. No fucking wonder you brought it on yourself.
Yeah. I've always, look, any young guys out there, I don't care what kind of nice piece of ass, even if she's got a little kid, never go to her house, never get involved in a child's life, never get involved seriously with a single mother. Never do it. Just, it's a rule of thumb. I know if people out there are going to say, oh, there's exceptions, you can find. No, you know, life is about having some basic rules and principles and just sticking to them, and you will do fine if you do that.
Yeah.
Just steer clear of them.
Yeah. We're talking very MGTOW there, aren't we?
Yeah, like I said, I think people have asked me before, are you a MGTOW? I say, well, I don't actually label myself as a MGTOW. I'm open to having relationships. Just right now, I just, given my age and what I'm doing in life, and I'm trying to build this channel, I honestly have no enthusiasm for it at all. Like, to me, having a shower, putting on deodorant, putting on a nice shirt to go out and meet someone is such a hassle for me compared to what I could be doing, the opportunity cost of what I could be doing instead of that. I just can't be bothered.
Look, I always found that between relationships, I would have a massive creative surge when it came to songwriting and recording, because that's what I was spending my time doing, you know. And so what had happened is I'd write and record 50 songs in the space of 3 months, and then I'd meet some woman and be hanging out with her for a year and a half and make 2 songs, you know. So you said a lot more
that's
work.
That's the same with me, mate.
Yeah.
It kills creativity. It always has for me, and better off without it. And it's taken me it took me 40 years to figure out yourself, because I think that's, you know, you go into a relationship and you're spending all your time trying to figure out what she's like and if she's the right person for you. But if you haven't figured yourself out and what you require and what you're willing and not willing to put up with and what you're willing to compromise with or not, if you don't know that about yourself, then you're fucked. You know, it took me 40 years to really figure out myself. And so I know what I need or desire from a relationship now. I'm just not interested in looking one right now. But I'll get back out there sooner or later. I'm sure of it.
All right, let's we'll a long hiatus there, but I'll take it back just a few seconds. And we'll run with our mate, Big Steve.
Only important. It's pretty great. Let me tell you why. Here are 5 awesome things about consent. Number 1, it's empowering. Consent means you get to decide. It means, for instance, if
wait. How is it empowering? I mean, what, to speak a fucking word? Yes. I mean, how bad is your life that this is empowering for you? This is empowering.
I don't even it's counterintuitive to, you know, you having to ask, how is it empowering the fact that you're reduced to having to someone ask someone else for something? How is that empowering? You know, not requiring consent, you know, saying, oh, no, you don't even have to fucking ask her anymore, mate. Just do it. That's empowering.
Yeah. It's empowering.
It's empowering for you.
It's empowering for the woman, I suppose, as she gets to say yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, if you're the one asking the questions the whole time. But for you, it puts you in the position of being completely subservient, doesn't it? And emasculated.
Well, that's probably who he, as a feminist and being a beta male, and, you know, you've seen that video of him being effectively almost virtually spoken down to by his wife and how uncomfortable he he looks, maybe that's who he means, that it's empowering for, that because he's always like putting women first, he sees it as empowering because it's empowering for her, even though it's shit for him.
His wife told him it's empowering. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's another way of sort of putting it as well. His wife told him, and he just echoes that sentiment. But
to do something that you don't want to do, you don't do it. And this is an important.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's rocket science, isn't it?
Yes, fuck. Oh, wow. It's empowering to figure out that you can not do something that you don't want to do. Fuck, I'm glad Steve's here to tell us that. Twat.
Throughout our lives, but especially when it comes to sex, we should claim for ourselves the right, and just as importantly, respect the rights of others to grant, withhold, or withdraw consent as they see fit.
As they see fit. That doesn't sound right, did it? Like, it's empowering for us, for them to withdraw consent when they see fit. It's the complete opposite. It's disempowering. It means you've got no agency or power. You're just consistently subject to the will of the other person who wants to change their mind every 5 seconds. It's just the complete opposite of what he said.
Yep, exactly. So what does this say here? Why, yes, I would like a donut. Take it. Oh, that no sexual innuendo there at all. Is that what you're calling it these days, a donut? I would like a donut. Thank you so much for asking. Sure, can you imagine if I didn't ask and just started cramming the donut into your face? Oh, fuck.
Yeah, that's pretty much porn, isn't
it?
Yeah. Oh, God.
Just look at it. Yes, I would like a donut. Well, I was actually going to ask. Yes, I would like a donut. Thank you so much for asking. Yeah, babe. Well, actually, what I wanted to do was actually get inside your donut.
Yeah, but it's not even a correct analogy, right? Because let's say the analogy is he's offering her a donut, but there's no pleasure in him with her accepting the offer of the donut, right? He doesn't get his dick in her because she eats a piece of donut. This is not how it works.
Yeah. Right? But he's not. He's asking her in the actual situation, because men have to get consent from the woman. He's not offering her a donut. He's asking her if he can get into her donut. That's actually how it's supposed to be, right? And then it's like, then the consent is either, yes, I will share my donut with you. I will either give the donut over sort of wholly, or fuck off, it's my donut, I'm eating it myself.
Yeah. Just retarded. So the analogy, like if you turn that into sex, is that here's my penis, or else I'm going to go over here in the corner and have it and just wank and keep it to myself and wank off.
Yeah.
I mean, is that it doesn't, the analogy doesn't work at all in any way you slice it.
Yeah. All right, so rolling on.
A society that understands and respects consent is a society where people are truly empowered to control their own lives in the most private and intimate of circumstances.
He's just said the same thing in a different way. That's all. He just said the exact same thing. He hasn't added any more.
Yeah. All right, number two.
Number two, it's affirmative. Sex educators and activists often stress that it's not mere consent, but enthusiastic consent that should be expressed for the initiation of,
I think it's probably a good time to point out, as I've brought up in a live stream with you before, the study of 5,000 women.
I just have to move a couple of seconds forward, because that still actually looks like he wants to kiss me, and I don't want to look at that.
Waiting for
Okay, I'm good. Okay, go on.
Yeah, the study of 5,000 women across the UK, that was England, Scotland, Wales, and I'm not sure if Ireland was included. 5,000 women across the UK. Now, I asked the question, have you ever said no when you fully intended to go through with sexual intercourse? Right? So basically, have you ever said no when you meant yes? And 50% of women said that they'd done that at least once. Right? So the idea that you need enthusiastic consent. So what happens when you get in one of those situations where we've all been in, you try and make a move, you're kissing or whatever, and then you try and go one move further, and she brushes your hand away or says no, or usually it's not verbal, right? It's just grab your hand, put your hand back on their leg instead of down their pants or whatever you're trying to do. And then, you get back into it for another 5 minutes, and then you try again, and all of a sudden there's no hand brushing you away. Now, that's consent. I don't think it's enthusiastic. It's just consent. Yes, you're allowed in now. Women change their mind. We know this.
Yeah, and imagine if you were, you had her at your place, you're kissing, you go, you're touching each other, you run your hand up her leg and all of that. She grabs your hand and she pushes it away, and without saying anything, you get up, you walk out the room, you pick up your car keys, you walk out the front door, and you drive off. How shitty would she fucking be? You'd be getting abusive phone calls the next morning, right?
Yeah. I mean, and it doesn't matter anyway, because look what happens with these chicks at university today, because they're so empowered with this idea that they can just say rape on anyone. That's the kind of shit they do. They just claim rape, right? What about that case of the woman that happened this year, who said on a university campus she actually raped a guy? She took a guy home who was passed out drunk. She fucked him. She then texted a friend saying, "Oh, I think I did something I shouldn't have." That guy got up in the morning and went home. She then texted another guy to come over and fuck her because she was feeling lonely. And then she went and claimed that the first guy raped her. And it was all because she basically felt bad about being a slut at the end of the day. What she didn't count on is that the authorities found all her texts, which is, I don't know why she would think that. I think one of her friends came forward and sort of said, "Oh, well, look at all the texts that she sent." Yeah. Basically admitted to fucking a guy who was unable to give consent, but because he's a guy, it doesn't fucking matter, of course. So women are... so you can imagine if you get to this point where the men are actually abiding by these standards, and you're on the couch with a girl and she goes, "No," and he goes, "Oh, okay then, well, I'll see you tomorrow in class." And he's out of there, which is not what she wants at all. And now she's going to claim sexual assault, not rape, but some kind of sexual assault. "Oh yeah, this guy came around and started groping me." It won't matter. That's what'll happen.
So I'm just reading this, trying to make sense of this as well. I don't know who Del Close is, but Del Close said, "Always affirm, but I prefer only affirm when you want to do the thing." Okay. Which, not as good of an improv philosophy.
Oh, Del Close was the famous improv teacher. I think someone in the chat should be able to confirm that, but I think so, because I've heard this. I used to listen to Mark Maron's podcast all the time, the comedian. I think that's who Del Close was.
Okay, so they're saying not as good as an improv philosophy. Would you agree with that? Like, I guess it's implying that it's better to sort of just improv philosophy surely is just in relation to that. What we were talking about before, sort of like feeling your way through it based on body language rather than, getting them to sign on the fucking dotted line for it.
But I prefer only affirm when you want to do the thing, which, not as good. I don't really understand that.
Well,
you understand that?
Yeah, well, the thing is usually, that some, when you want to do the thing.
I don't get the second.
Cucumber.
I mean, I get the first one. So I prefer to affirm when you. So you affirm when you want to have sex. Yeah. Okay. Which okay, not as good as of an improv philosophy. So they're saying, which is our argument, which is an improv philosophy is what? Just sort of feeling your way through it, non-verbal.
Yeah, improvisation. So to make it up as you go along, right? Yeah.
Not as good as an improv. So they're saying that this consent isn't it contradicting the whole idea here?
Yeah, well, that's my reading of it, at least. Anyway, maybe there's something there that I'm sort of missing that they're trying to convey, but I see it the same way that you kind of explained it just then. Anyway, let's see what our mate Big Stevie, has to say about it.
Enthusiastic consent makes sure that sex is something that everyone involved really wants and is excited about.
Yeah, well, I don't want to have sex with everyone. I just want to have sex with just one other person.
Everyone.
But you make it sound everyone involved. You make it sound like there's a whole party of people there. Like.
There's an audience watching or something, and they're all going, "Yes, we agree. Go ahead." Yeah. You ever seen Monty Python's Meaning of Life? And John Cleese is demonstrating sex, and this woman walks in, and she just gets these, and so you mount the woman like this, and the penis goes in, and there's just a whole class that they're just watching.
And the penis will den.
Oh, fuck. Yeah.
Consent doesn't mean not no. Ideally, consent doesn't mean I guess so. Ideally, consent means yes. But that yes is not permanent or irreversible.
If somebody, if I was the other person and he said, do you want to have sex? And they said it like Steve Shives, they went, yes. I'll be thinking, Jesus Christ, I'm getting out of here as quick as I can. It can be.
Yeah, I mean.
Sorry, it can be given or revoked at will. Now, I like I said, I haven't seen this, but I can anticipate here. I wonder if he's going to lean towards the, consent can be withdrawn in retrospect argument.
Yeah.
I hate that one. I absolutely hate that one. I'm like, no, because it flies in the face of the idea of a contract. Right?
Yeah.
And basically, changing basically whether it's a verbal or a written contract, for you to withdraw consent retrospectively it's a violation of a contract that you entered into with someone.
Yeah, it's like you're at the casino and you put $10 on black. It comes up red, and you go to the deal. Yeah, but I actually meant red. I didn't mean to put it on black. Yeah, you put your money down, fuckwit.
Yeah,
you're done. Yeah,
Or you basically you're at the casino and it says put down $10, draw number 26 and win $1,000, right? And you put down your $10, number 26 or whatever I fucking said just then comes out, and then when you go up to thing and the sign says $1,000, I say, well, actually, what we accidentally put an extra zero on there. What we meant was 100. So I'm only giving you, but you see there 1,000. Oh, but we're only giving out 100.
Yeah,
They'll never win. They'll never win because it's basically you entered into it under a belief that was the deal.
Yeah, I argued with someone the other day in some comments, maybe I don't know, a couple of weeks ago, going back, and I said, and I quoted them, and then I said, this is why what you said doesn't make any sense, and here's the evidence. And then they went, no, but what I meant was, and I'm like, I said, you're like the kid in school who gets something wrong on the math test. And then he says to the teacher, oh, I didn't mean to write that. What I meant to, I accidentally wrote a 1 instead of a 7. I didn't carry the 5. It's like, yeah, you got it wrong, dickhead. You don't get it. The test is over now. You don't get to go back.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so consent, it can be given or revoked at will. Oh.
Number 3, it can be given or revoked at will. Consent isn't something you do just when you start to have sex. It's something that you do continuously throughout the entire sex-having process. Sex should not be like a roller coaster where you have to ride all the way to the end, even if you regret getting on halfway through.
Yeah, but I mean,
You think so?
it's like,
Hang on, babe. I know we've just finished the oral part, but I just need you to sign here underneath so that I know that it's all right for us to now, because, you know, we need to stop and have a discussion about that. We're about to enter the penetration stage. Right.
Yeah, I mean, if you were that unsure, like that, you halfway through you're like, oh no, this is not what I wanted to do. It's like, why are you in this situation in the first? You should not be in this situation in the first place, right? Like, let's say you're one of these women who's like, you like a guy, you're not sure if he likes you, you're just wondering whether he wants to fuck you. This is sort of the eternal problem that women often have, right? Does he really like me, or does he just want to fuck me? Does he really like me, or does he just want to fuck me? And if that's going through your head while you're being fucked, it's too late to be having that thought. You know, if you can't decipher the man's intentions, then you know, you're really not doing your due diligence. I mean, and this is why, again, I'm not a Christian. I don't have any. I was a terrible slut when I was young, but the idea of being more conservative and not giving it up on the first date and waiting, you know, weeks, even months, or 6 or 8 dates, it's actually a good thing to get to know someone first. I know that's an old-fashioned thing to say, and it doesn't usually come from an atheist who fucked around a hell of a lot in his life, but it actually pays to get to know people before you fuck them. So if you're fucking someone and you're thinking, and it's going through your head, oh, I'm not sure if I want to do this, I think this guy just wants to fuck me, and then you go, stop. Well, yeah, I mean, the guy should stop, but you really should not be in that position to begin with.
I was reading about that very thing that you're talking about earlier today. I've just started on Their Evil Creed. It's about feminism. Their Evil Creed by Herbert Purdy, and that's basically what he's talking about in the opening chapter of the book, about the, you know, the devaluation of you know, the virtue, of female virtue, and sort of, you know, why it's beneficial to women to hold off and not basically just give it over straight away, and, you know, just talking about and how men, you know, value that differently, and the roles of men and women, and why it worked to help create the family unit, and all of these, and sort of weighing off against, you know, progressive ideas versus traditional ideas, and you know, I'm not going to go right into elaborate, but it really, when you said that, then it really hit home on what I was reading earlier today, you know, and I agree with you, and I think what I was reading in the book is true to a large extent as well.
Yeah, and this is why I think as you get older, you appreciate conservative values. I mean, I just give you another data point. They've done studies that show that if you have very few sex partners, your marriage is far more likely to stay together. And the more sex partners you have, the higher your chances are of divorce. Now, of course, these are generalizations. There are exceptions. Of course, there's people out there who are going to say, oh, I fucked 200 women and I've been married for 30 years. Yes, okay. But the evidence suggests that if you only have one sexual partner, you're far more likely to stay married than if you had 20 or 40. That's just how the data comes out. It doesn't say anything about the happiness of your marriage. It just says that you'll be together.
Now, this cartoon and caption thing he's got going here, I could see a response to this already, you know, because, again, to me, it's a false equivalency thing. But he's trying to relate this, you know, like as if you're going to eat in a cafe or something, to, you know, sexual engagement. I only see conditional consent. Oh, sorry. Only see conditional consent on the menu. Don't you have any permanent consent? No, but I do have a pamphlet that you might find informative. Well, my initial response is, if I sit down at the table and I do actually start to eat this meal, and you think that you're going to come along and take it off me halfway through eating it, you've got another fucking thing coming. And you can bet that I'll never eat at this restaurant again, and I'll tell all my friends to never fucking eat at this restaurant again, because what she's going to do is you're going to be halfway through the meal and she's going to, no, I'm taking it away from you, you know. And you do that in a fucking restaurant, and you're out of business.
Yeah, you ever had that happen to me? That happened to me on a cruise ship. I went on one of those. You remember the Fair Star? It was called Fair Star the Fun Ship. Everyone called it Fair Star the Fuck Ship.
Yeah.
I went on a Fair Star cruise for 9 days around the Pacific, and I was like 23. I went with a couple of blokes. We got a cabin, and that's all it was. Just a big fuck fest, piss up. You just hammered for 9 days, and you stop off at Fiji and Vanuatu and a few places like that. Oh yeah, I got a couple of girls. This one got into bed, all the clothes off, got it in, and it was, oh no, I don't want to do this. It's like, oh, fucking really? You know, I honoured her request, but I just didn't go near her for the rest of the cruise. And she thought, you know, it's like, look, you blew it, bitch. You know, fuck off. You're a time waster. Go away.
Yeah.
Go and fuck something else.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I was trying to think of an example of that happening to me. I think there has been a couple of examples. I have actually had that happen in a restaurant with the food situation, where there was we were basically we'd ordered pizza and all of this, and then the girl that my mate was with wanted to fucking go down to the road and see her friend or something like that. And so he went, look, I'll be back in like 15 minutes. I'm just going to run her down the road. And so what I did was I left the pizza sitting there in front of me, and stopped eating, sort of waiting for him to return so that we'd share what was left. And so this waitress saw that I wasn't eating anymore, but instead of coming over and asking me whether I was finished, right, she just came over and grabbed it. She didn't even fucking speak to me. She just came and grabbed it from in front of me. And I instinctively, I turned around and went, hey, right? Yeah. And she fucking slams it down on the table and goes, don't fucking hey me.
Yeah.
You know, and of course I was pretty young at the time. Like nowadays, I'd be straight up talking to a boss. Yeah. Right? Not only did she come and take the food away without fucking asking me, but she, you know, and then she was, and then when I objected to it, she took it as a personal thing and was rude to me. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, actually, I think so in Japan once, this is the danger of internet dating. Probably, I don't know if people know out there, but there's a website called Adult Friend Finder. It's been around for close to 20 years, I reckon.
I know it.
Anyway, I was on.
They email me. I unsubscribe. I'm hooked up. They've managed to get my email again. I unsubscribe. I can't get rid of them.
Yeah, I was on there fucking more than 15 years ago. Anyway, I was on there. I was in Japan, so I met some girl online. I met her. She said, look, I'm not looking for a serious relationship, just want a casual hookup, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so we met, and then, we kind of arranged that the next time we meet that she would come back to my place. So we went home separate ways. Then when we came back, we met in the same place, same train station, and the plan was we're just going to have something to eat, and then we'll go back to my house. And she just showed up, and she was just so sloppily dressed and good as she did the first time. I just went, yeah, no, I'm just going to change my mind. Sorry. And she was fucking pissed. I mean, we weren't in bed. We were at a train station. I just went, yeah, just changed my mind. And I know that must have really pissed her off because she scheduled this. This was going to be her Saturday or Sunday night or whatever it was. But fuck it. But that's a different situation to, you know, the situation here is that she actually did come back to my place. We got undressed, got in bed, and then I went, nah, not up for it. That's just lame.
That's right. The black and yellow striped bumblebee jumper and brown tracksuit pants just aren't doing for me, babe.
Yeah. I don't know. Especially when you're in Japan, it's just fucking attractive women everywhere. You're just like, fucking, I'm not going to settle for that.
Yeah. Hey, that makes sense to me as well, man.
With sex, you should be able to get off whenever you want.
Really?
Well, that sort of contradicts everything you've just said, doesn't it?
Yeah, That's right. It's not whenever you want. It's whenever the other person says it's okay.
Yeah.
Orgasms are like jumping off a roller coaster.
The point is, sex should be satisfying to everyone.
Orgasms are like jumping off a roller coaster. You could be decapitated.
Jesus Christ.
These comparison things that he uses, they're fucking weak, and they're just, they're just not.
They're not
working.
No, they just don't work. They're just
everyone involved, not just some of the people involved. If someone says,
"What are you fucking orgies?"
Yeah.
Some. How often is this happening?
Yeah, I mean, that's right. He makes it sound like it's happening in a prayer group or in an auditorium or something like that. He's got a big problem with it. He hasn't got lower teeth, has he?
I don't know. He's got lots of problems. He's got scoliosis and just weak body all around.
He's got
pale
square
skin. He's just terrible.
He's got square ears.
Yeah, and I guess I'm assuming he wears a hat because he's probably bald, and that's why he wears that.
That's my excuse.
Change their mind and say no at any point, and that no should be respected and honored just as if it had been said at the very beginning. Number 4, it allows everyone involved to have a good time. Consent isn't an obstacle to be overcome. It's a necessary condition, necessary and beneficial.
That's actually runs counter to how we work, isn't it? Because consent is an obstacle. It is in some sense, especially from the man's point of view, since the man is nearly always the initiator. It is an obstacle in a sense, isn't it? I mean, the whole sort of drive of masculinity and hormones, testosterone, is to break down that woman's defenses, and not in a nefarious way. But I mean, this is the whole point of our drive as a species to reproduce. I mean, it's primal. So it is, consent absolutely is an obstacle to be overcome. I mean, it is really in a true biological sense.
Yeah. Because again, it's I think you have to concede, no matter which side of the argument you're on, that it's a blending of nature and nurture. Because we're not totally driven by biology in the same way that, if I can use the term, lower animals are, because we're the species on the planet that has reason, and we're more, we're so you can't say that we're more social, we're the only ones that are socially constructed. There's other animals that are, ants would be the first, and bees and things like that, and things in the insect world would automatically come to mind. But they've got more instinctive drives to their social construction, whereas a lot of ours is actually formed on forms of reasoning. But at the same time, I think the biological side is often overlooked more than it should be, because biology is driven by base instincts that aren't necessarily in the forefront of our reasoning. It doesn't mean that they're any less valid in any way, but the feminists and the social engineers, even if you set aside their deliberate manipulations, that surely the social construct side is it's more conscious than the biological instinctive drives, which are more subconscious.
Yeah, and ask women. I mean, not just when it comes to sex, but relationships. Do they want a man, even in the age of feminism and equality and all the rest of that bullshit? Ask how many women want the man to take the lead. Ask women, when you talk about dates, one of the things they hate the most is when a man asks them out. Yeah, sure. Where are we going to go? And the guy goes, "Oh, I don't know. Haven't thought about it."
Yeah, what do you think?
Women hate.
Where do you want to go? Oh, well, I was, and then she's going, well, I isn't that your, you think of something.
Yeah, like it's women hate that.
Yeah,
There's two sides to that. One thing is if you play it from, like I always say, look, if you're going to ask a woman out, at least have at least two places. Yeah, there's a new restaurant just opened up down the way. I've never been to this one. Have you been there? I always wanted to try it. You have a few lined up. Now, the other side to take is, well, why the fuck should I? Why women have all these expectations they can go fuck themselves. But if you do the asking out, then I think it's at least on you to come up with a destination if you're doing the asking.
Yeah, and
that's what I said.
Any guys that are out there, you probably know this already, and you don't need Gary Orsum to tell you, but never take a woman to a movie on a first date. That is fucking wrong.
That's a killer.
That's bad. Never take a woman to the movie for the first date, because what you're doing is you're sitting next to somebody for 2 hours that you can't even have a fucking conversation with them because it just doesn't work.
Yeah, it's fucking awkward. Yeah, and if you know someone and you've known them for a while and you ask them out for dinner, fine. But if you meet someone on the internet, you never, ever go on a dinner date with them. It's coffee at a location you can escape from. You meet at a location where you can either sit for an hour or sit for 5 minutes, because you might want to get out of there in 5 minutes. And she's probably thinking the same thing.
And also, too,
just a golden
not a party. Personally, I would go not a party, not a pub also, because what you're doing is you're attempting your first contact in to impress her in an environment where other men might be doing exactly the same thing, right? Whereas if you're in a cafe and all of that, no bloke's going to come over and basically go, hey, can I interrupt you two guys so I can chat her up? Right? whereas in the pub, that's exactly what they'll fucking do. Right?
Taking a girl to a party on a first date would have to be the fucking worst decision you could possibly make, because guaranteed you're going to see another chick there you want to fuck more than the girl that you're with.
Yep.
Guaranteed.
And also, you say one thing wrong. You say one thing wrong, and she's all over the fucking guy on the other side of the kitchen.
Yeah, that's just a no-no. I mean, it's bad enough when you actually go to a party with a girl that you like and there's already your girlfriend and you see someone else there you want to fuck. That happens often enough, let alone doing it on a first date.
Yeah. All right, so just moving.
Someone enthusiastically consents to have sex with you, you know that it's what they really want to do, and they're going to have a great time just the same as you are. Having sex should be like going to the movies with every.
Oh, he said it. There. You're a winner, Steve. Well, we know.
Sex should be.
Sorry, mate.
Oh, it should be like going to the movies. Oh, Jesus, really?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's right. You sit there and don't say anything to each other. Exactly what I was talking about before. Where you're obliged for the sake of everyone around you to keep your fucking mouth shut and turn your phone off.
Yeah. By the way, you go to, especially these days when you go to the movies, because there's so few decent original movies. They're always, the Hollywood blockbusters are, safe, well-worn territory most of the time, some kind of Marvel bullshit, something like that. I'm not excited to go to the movies most of the time. I'm generally hopeful but skeptical when I go to the movies. I don't go there excited like a fucking kid with my popcorn in my hand and my dick in the other. It's retarded.
Yeah, and he shouldn't like and go into the movies like sex. Imagine being in the movie and saying, "Fuck this movie's so fucking boring. I may as well have just had sex with you." If I wanted to be that bored, yeah, that'll go down well. But
nobody just going along to humor somebody else. If you want to see a movie and your partner or partners don't feel like it, then just wait until everybody who you want to see the movie with feels like going to see the movie. And
by which time, I don't like it anymore.
Yeah, or you could just say, you know what, you don't feel like going to the movie? Well, I do, so I'm going by myself, right?
Yep.
I don't want to wait for you. I want to see the movie now, and I don't want to wait till you're in the fucking mood. I'm going to go out and bang the other chick. Oh, the girl next door that's always looking at me? I'm just going to go over to her place because you're not in the mood. So stick that in your pipe and smoke it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's I'm going to the movie by myself to see how to have a wank in 5 seconds.
If you really can't wait, you can always, go to the movies by yourself.
Oh, you're all over.
Thanks, Steve.
Yeah. Love the analogy, mate. Love the analogy.
It might not be as fun as going to the movies with someone else, but it's a lot.
Well, that's not necessarily true, because when you live in your own masturbatory fantasy world, you actually have sex with pretty much whoever you want.
Yeah, especially if you get one of those, VR headwear fucking gizmos, these days, the 3D stuff.
Oh, that brings me. I'm going to be doing stuff shortly, I think, on robotic and appliance sex.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Mrs. Orsum's been finding some pretty sort of funny stuff that I can use sort of in relationship to that. Just because you touched on that whole thing. But, yeah.
Better than dragging someone else along with you to the movies when they really don't want to go.
Fuck that. Well, why would I do that? I wouldn't that's just dumb, because I want to go see this movie, and she says, not really, it's not really my cup of tea. Oh, come on, let's go. I mean, do you really want someone sitting next to you who's going to be a little bitch through the whole movie? Why would you do that? Why would you drag? You wouldn't. I mean, I have always had a philosophy in my life. I ask you once, and if you're not enthusiastic, or you're not, oh yeah, or I mean, if you're slightly, not really, well, I wouldn't ask you again. I'm not going to hassle you. I'll just go see that by myself.
Yeah.
Right.
Have you heard the old Cheech and Chong's kid about going to the movies, that old thing called Hey Margaret? He drags the wife into the porno theater and hey Margaret, look, a close up. What does that look like? And he goes, I think it looks like your grandfather eating ice cream. Oh God.
The last awesome thing about consent I wanted to mention, number 5, it keeps you from becoming a rapist.
Oh, no. Are you serious? And of course, he's got his anti-Trump, trying to imply that Trump's a rapist. Hey, if you're rich, you can grab on the pussy and all that.
Yeah.
Because they let you. Because they let
yes.
you. Because and the reason they let you do it is because they want from you the money. The money and more than that, the money.
That's the key phrase, isn't it? I mean, what Trump said, which is, they let you do it. I mean, he didn't say you just go up and grab chicks on the pussy, regardless.
Yeah. If they don't like it, tough shit, because I'm rich. Right? Exactly. But this whole idea, look. The thing that stops you from being a rapist is the proper reasoning that you know that it's wrong. You wouldn't want to do it. It's not even that you're afraid of being caught or afraid of the punishment. It's because you're that sort of person within yourself that doesn't want to do that to another human being.
I don't have any. I don't think I would derive any pleasure from holding a woman down against her. I mean, half the, when you're young to chase a girl, or a lot of the time, it's that moment when you've convinced her to come back to your place, and you've got her, basically, right? You've been out to dinner, and you've had a good time, and you see that look in her eye, and you're going to get laid. That's sort of the accomplishment.
That's it. Yeah. It's the accomplishment. To me, it doesn't. See, rape in that sense doesn't make sense, because you hear these things that, it's not about sex, it's about power. But to me, the idea that you would have to rape them against their will is far less powerful than having won them, because winning is powerful. Cheating is not powerful. Winning is powerful.
It's a weak, cowardly act. You couldn't actually accomplish it the normal way. You couldn't actually win a woman over. You couldn't win her affections over. You had to force it from her. It seems like someone, I guess maybe in a sense that, yes, these men who can't do that are powerless and they're trying to assert some power that they have, but it's actually an act of weakness and cowardice, isn't it?
Yeah, that's exactly how I see it anyway. Yeah. So constantly, yeah. I don't think I've ever seen that word before. Oh, fuck.
Pretty simple, really. Rape, by definition, is non-consensual sex. So if you recognize other people,
sorry, Kat.
No, you could. No, just like obviously,
whether or not they want to have sex with you, and you respect the agency and autonomy of your partners or prospective partners, and you wait for yes and honor no, you won't have to worry about committing one of the worst crimes there is.
Yes, you will, because she will apply that retrospectively. Right? She will say yes, and then argue that she can later on say no because she regretted it.
And if you can retroactively withdraw consent, why can't you retroactively ask for consent? You know, wait till after to ask for it.
Yeah, good call. Yeah. That's it. Maybe that's it. Feminists go back in the time machine. Only instead of in the TARDIS for feminists, it's the retardus that they have to.
Every year in the United States alone, there are approximately 300,000 reported sexual assaults.
Yeah, and actually 96,000 that I've read are the rapes of men of women in a population of 300 million. But then 216,000, more than double that amount, is men being raped in prison. More men are raped in prison. More than twice as many men are raped in the prison system in America than women are raped across the entire country throughout society.
Yep. And the same people that argue that, you know, jail is terrible, incarcerating people for all these crimes is horrible and we shouldn't do it and it should be more about rehabilitation. Then if you bring up the rape thing, well, they don't deserve to be counted because they're criminals. Consistency for you.
But also, too, you'll hear the argument that, oh, yeah, but it's men that are doing those rapes in prison, so it's men. How does that negate in any way the men that are victims of those
exactly
rapes?
That's what I always say. It's when, you know, you often hear this about domestic violence, right? That women, you know, 1 in 4 women will be physically assaulted in her life, and that does not necessarily sexually assault. And you go, yeah, but 1 in 2 men will be physically assaulted in their life. And they go, yeah, but the majority of perpetrators are men. It's like, so here's my question: does being a male victim of a male perpetrator make you less of a victim than if you're a girl? And I've said this to a woman before. I said, so if you beat your son and your daughter equally, is your daughter less of a victim because you share the same sex as her? That's your argument. That's what you're saying. Someone is less of a victim because they share the same sex as the perpetrator. That just doesn't make any sense.
And I know what their answer is. Their answer is,
yep.
That's their answer, because you fucking got them when you know, or you know, or they just go into some denial thing or change the subject or some stupid like that. That's all they can do then, because you've got them. Yeah,
and this plays the whole. I mentioned this in my Q&A video, which was the whole domestic violence. Not the whole. A lot of the domestic violence angle in Australia was about the fact that men, and we have to respect women more. But the research done by that Michael Flood feminist wanker shows that the people who have the least respect in society, it's men have the least respect towards. The next group is the women have less respect for men than men have for women. And so if we wanted to address respect in society. We should be teaching men to respect each other more. And the next one should be teaching women to respect men more. These are the
yep.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yep. That's stunning.
We all respected each other enough to seek consent every time and to never force sex in a situation where consent is absent or in question, that number wouldn't be 300,000.
No, because there wouldn't be any fucking people.
No can't be having sex.
No one would be having sex. That's it. We'd be in another fucking 60 years' time.
Yeah, that'd be funny. Like, in 10 years' time, when everybody's abiding by these consent laws, and they go, look, there was only 50 rapes this year, down from 300,000 or whatever the fuck, and you go, yeah, and there were only 100 babies born, and the population decreased by 30 million people. Well done.
Yeah.
It would be zero. That's how awesome consent is.
Oh, bullshit. Nirvana fallacy. Or if we teach men not to rape, then that's going to there will be no more rape. If we take away, I had an argument with someone at work the other day who's anti-gun, and look, I'm not pro-gun as much as I'm pro-rights and pro-Second Amendment rights, and the argument from the other person was, but 254 children accidentally shot somebody with a gun. They have to live with that for the rest of the... Yeah, but, if you take away... And she just doesn't get the idea that if you take away people's right to bear arms, you end up with a totalitarian state where something like, just to use the classic example, a Stalinist thing where they're the only ones with the guns and the people have no power to fight back against the tyranny of government. And then instead of 254 children that have to live with having shot someone, 60 million people get exterminated.
Well, look at. I mean, you had almost a near situation. Well, I don't know if it was almost in the United States just recently. I mean, like, could you imagine if these electoral college representatives had decided not to cast their vote for Trump, as the idiots the celebrities in California were imploring them to do? I mean, this is exactly the reason the Second Amendment exists. So, I think maybe Beware of Darkness and Base Mama were saying this on the last podcast. Could you imagine if that happened? You'd think people would take up their fucking arms. I think there'd be some of that going on.
Yeah.
I mean, that people would go fucking nuts. And this is exactly why they have a Second Amendment. The other thing is, here in Australia, the evidence when we put our gun ban in place, it does not show that it decreased murders. Gun deaths by gun went down, but then the stats were going down anyway. But murder didn't really go down in the few years following that law. People just killed other people in different ways.
But you heard those guys, Base Mama and Beware of Darkness last week, talk about how in Texas, where they've got open carry laws, ever since they had open carry, crime's gone right down. And they talked about how concealed carry was even better for making crime go down, because then you know who's got it, who hasn't. It's at least with open carry, you go, I'm not going to commit a crime with them because I can see that they've got a gun and they'll shoot me. And so all you needed to do was find somebody who you knew didn't have a gun. Whereas with conceal and carry, and again, I remember them talking about how somewhere like Chicago's got the strictest gun control laws, yet they've got the highest levels of gun crime.
Yeah. I mean, someone just wrote in here, Australia has done fine without guns. That's not the point. I'm not saying that we should have our own Second Amendment. We should all go out and arm up. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is there's no evidence we imposed actually did anything to significantly reduce gun violence or murder in Australia. It just didn't. That's just what the statistics say. But because if you go back and you have a look at gun crime before we brought in that law, very few people got killed in Australia by guns. Very few. Yeah. I mean, it's like 30 or 40 a year. It's fuck all.
Yeah. And of course, what you've got now is with the amnesty, everyone handed their guns in except the criminals. Yeah. So, Yeah, so it's like, you know, the good people that would never shoot anyone maliciously and all of that have had their guns removed, and it's only the criminals that have basically got them left. Again, yeah, I can't see the chat. And I can't respond because I'm looking at this thing in full screen and it's too hard to switch around. But again, I agree with their Second Amendment right based on the fact that the forefathers wrote the Constitution with that a people's republic shouldn't have a standing army, and in times of and as soon as a war has ended, that the standing army should be disbanded within 18 months. And the American government has never done that. They've maintained a standing army right throughout their history and it's against the Constitution to do that. And so that's what the People's Militia is about. It's about protecting itself so that the people have the ultimate power and can, whether that works in actuality or not, to protect themselves against the tyranny of government.
Yeah, and just think about why that's such a good thing. I mean, what it's saying is you should be deeply, deeply skeptical about government constantly. When the government gets too big for its boots and starts insinuating this is why the American system, the way it was set up, is so fucking ingenious. You know, once the government starts insinuating itself too much within people's lives, it's like, get the fuck out. Get the fuck out of our lives.
Yeah.
First, we're going to throw you out. Then we'll come at you with our fucking guns. Now, of course, that's been lost in the modern era because people think, especially on the left, that government is their friend and is their solution. I mean, that was what's so wonderful about Ronald Reagan. I don't think they get it, that he said the 9 worst words you can hear is, I'm from the government and I'm here to help you. I mean, he said that and it made sense. It cut through. People understood it immediately. That's been completely fucking lost.
I think one of the things too, I was going to say with the Constitution, was it's worded badly in that everyone refers to it as the right to bear arms, where, you know, the interpretation really should be that the people have a duty to bear arms.
Yeah, that's a better way of putting it, isn't it?
To protect the people. But you were going to say something that somebody said in chat there?
Someone said in the chat, I guess because we brought up domestic violence, we'd like to see Gary and Independent Man talk about the way Aboriginal domestic violence figures skew Aussie domestic violence figures. Well, yeah, I mean, the silly thing that is repeated consistently is that domestic violence is an epidemic. It reaches into all classes of society. It doesn't. And I did a video and I made an analogy to rainfall. In Tipperburra, which is at the top of northern Queensland, they get 3,000 fucking millimeters of rain a year, and in other places in Australia they get 10. That's how you should think of domestic violence. Lane Cove probably doesn't have any domestic violence at all, but Aboriginal communities, it is an epidemic. It is actually accurate to talk about an epidemic of domestic violence in the Northern Territory and Aboriginal remote communities. It absolutely is. But the idea that it's systemic and across society is absolute fucking horseshit.
And that it's gender-based. You know, when you've got in Lane Cove, you've got 50% men and 50% women. And whereas out in the Aboriginal community, you've got 50% men and 50% women. That's not the factor. And anyone can see it as plain as day when you have a look at the data. It's socioeconomic. It's to do with drug and alcohol abuse, mainly because particularly alcohol fuels, belligerent behaviour and fights and arguments. It's the alcohol even more than other drugs, but the prevalence of meth in Australia now, that makes people aggressive, even though I don't believe that meth is as big a problem as what they sort of try and make it out, but alcohol would definitely be. And on top of that, also intergenerationality. In other words, you know, if you were brought up in a household where you saw that going on, be it from the mother to the father or the father to the mother or to each other, you're more likely to live that way yourself and see it as acceptable behaviour. So it's breaking that cycle of violence. Obviously financial tensions and things, and that's why it's in socio-economically depressed areas. But I think a lot of the problems with socioeconomic depression is that they actually do find themselves in that situation because they pursued a life of alcohol and drug use, and that's where their money went. A lot of people could actually dig themselves out of that socioeconomic depression if they were more disciplined and exercised the same equality of opportunity as, a lot of other people, because not just everybody that came from the North Shore and all of that, some people are born with a spoon in their mouth to a certain extent, but you can squander that and ruin your life. I've known people that have done that, and money actually was the root of their problems because they had money to spend on drug abuse and things and didn't have to, if they didn't have money, they wouldn't have been able to buy all of that smack, right? I've seen that in a couple of instances.
And another thing is people who've watched my stuff and your stuff, I think, are probably by now familiar with Mark Latham. Now, he earlier in the year, I think before he got all his gigs on Sky News and things, he started up a podcast and he only put out 5 episodes. One of those episodes, you can go look at him. It's called Latham Land. He invites a cop on because, he's pretty big on debunking domestic violence bullshit. And he invited a cop on, a female cop who's been on the beat and who I think she was retired, or she'd been in the cop force for 20 years, and she'd spent 10 or 15 years going out week after week, usually weekends because that's when people get pissed, attending to domestic violence calls. And she made, it's not men on women, it's men and women having a go at each other. And he said, these people are usually low education. They don't really even know how to communicate with each other. Yeah. And she said they're like children, and they're often drunk, or as you said, on some kind of drugs. These are just people who are of low education, poor communication skills, hard socioeconomic conditions, and on some type of drug often or alcohol. The usual sort of situation. It's nothing like it's portrayed in the media. It's portrayed as though men go around with just these massive misogynist attitudes, and they hear a joke that's where a woman's the butt of the joke, and then they go home and beat their wife. Yeah, based on an innocuous joke they heard at work. I mean, it doesn't go down like this. Like middle class men in an office situation, like executives earning 150 grand a year or something with a nice cushy job, hears a joke, goes home and beats his middle class wife in his McMansion. It just doesn't fucking happen like that.
Yeah. Oh, look, it's portrayed in Australia that the guy's asking the boss if he can get out of work early to go home and beat his wife because he can't fucking wait. And of course, it's just making the problem worse. So I agree with them when they say, there's been an increase. Of course there's been an increase. If you say to one half of society, hey, you get in trouble for robbing a bank and stealing money, and you can actually blame that robbery on your husband, what are you going to see? You're going to see a massive increase in the amount of women doing bank robberies.
Of course.
Because
that's what you've seen with women taking out apprehended. Yeah, and you see women abusing the AVO system. Most women don't abuse the AVO system, but if you make the system so that it can be abused, well, then more women are going to do it. It's that fucking simple. It really is. Yeah. You give them an incentive to do it, they'll do it.
Yeah. Or you open the door to them, not even providing incentive, but if you open the door to allow them to do something that there'll be no repercussions for, and that they can just blame on someone else, of course they're going to do it.
Yeah, that's pretty much a woman these days, isn't it? Pretty much in any situation.
Yeah, that's basically it. It doesn't matter how many dramas or whatever that she causes, or how many problems, she can just turn around and make out that it was all his fault, and based on the.
And look at the real problem for the idiot feminists who go on about domestic violence is that it's just not that prevalent. I think Mark Latham came out with a statistic that 1.1% of women experience domestic violence per year in a 12-month period. Yeah. So what do? Well, we just redefine what domestic violence means. So now the silent treatment, it can be considered, remember these new guidelines were handed to the court a few months back as guidelines for judges to take into account when they're considering domestic violence, not actually domestic violence cases, but like custody, granting, apprehensive violence orders. And it's to the point where a woman doesn't even have to prove anything. She just has to go in and say, I feel unsafe because my husband stared at me, or he sat in a chair in front of the TV for 2 hours and didn't speak to me, and I feel unsafe. And that's enough to get you removed from the household. That's enough.
Yeah. Yep. Mate, just while I was thinking of it, I'm sure it's national news, right? But I don't know if I should be talking about this, but, for going on for 20 years here in the biggest police investigation ever into a murder case, the Claremont serial killer.
You heard about? Yeah, I saw that.
Okay, so they've arrested this guy, this Bradley Robert Edwards, right? And when I heard his name, I suddenly thought that I used to work with in my last job, whose last name was Edwards, right? And jokingly to myself, I wonder if he's fucking part of his family and all of that. Anyway, so the pictures of the pictures of the guy come out in the paper and all of that, and I went, "Oh my fucking Lord!" It's like looking like the fucking spit out of his mouth. It's this guy I work with. I swear, mate, it's his elder brother or his cousin. It's someone close to the family. I would be absolutely shocked to find out that it wasn't a relative of this guy that I used to work with, and a close family relative, because I could see a definite resemblance with this guy. And those times where you just wish you could get into a time machine and go back and ask this guy that you used to work with questions about the Claremont serial killing, or bring it up in conversation to see what their reaction would be. To be able to gauge whether they actually knew anything about it, whether they were an accessory after the fact and were protecting someone because they, were a fellow family member and that. But I'm absolutely sure that this guy that they've fucking nabbed for it finally is a relative of a guy I used to work with who used to talk a lot about shooting. Him and his old man were gun nuts, right?
How are these women? How are these women killed? Like, what was their?
It's a general like sexual assault and murder thing. But now apparently a lot of I can't say for sure here, but I believe that there was actually some pretty horrific things done, and that weren't readily disclosed to the public. Now, I heard some talk at some stage about really like weird things being done, like the women's fucking lips being sewn together after they were fucking deceased, and sicko things. But I can't say that with any certainty.
For people who don't know, it was 3 women that were killed in 96, 7, I think, wasn't it? And I think one of them,
2 women whose bodies,
one of the bodies was never found.
That's right. Yeah, one of the girls has never been found. But he's also facing priors for sexual assaults as well.
Right.
Yeah. He would have been a very young fellow at the time. He's only 48 now. So he would have started this predatory behaviour when he was 17, 18. And he would have been actually in his very early 20s when he did these, which is very odd, because it's more of the realm of 30 to 40-year-old men to do that sort of thing.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's probably a bit of a Dexter.
Possibly, yeah. All right, shall we roll on with this vid there? Is that?
Yep. Almost done.
Only 5. Catch you next time.
Oh, okay, you're out here. Good.
Hey, folks, I hope you enjoyed this one. If you did, please.
No, we didn't. Fuck off. Yeah, I disliked it and I unsubscribed. Oh, no, wait a minute. I didn't subscribe in the first place, you tosser.
That's right. So you can't kick me off his subscriptions list because I never fucking joined. Trump is rape cult. And 5
I think I want to see the angry white men. I think I want to hear that one. Don't hear enough of that.
Let's have a look. Here we go.
There's a lot of rage being displayed by many of my fellow cisgender white men. You see it on a daily basis on the internet. You saw it during this most recent U.S.
Sorry, don't call me you fucking cisgendered fucking white men like
cisgender.
Like I belong in some club with you. You know,
yeah, it's like
I'm regular.
These words are deliberately intended to be derogatory. Cisgender or heteronormative. The way they say it, it's a put down. Now, I don't feel put down. I mean, I don't feel oppressed when somebody says it. I just laugh at the fact that they've tried to come up with a name to make you. It's kind of like calling white people crackers. Like it's like that doesn't have any negative connotation for me.
When I hear heteronormative, it's like they're almost trying to say sexually deformed.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a classic case of projection, isn't it? You know, you're the abnormal one. Don't try and pretend that I am.
Yeah, and the other term I've heard some of these gender ideologues use is monosexual, like as if you
can't multitask.
You're stunted by imposing limits upon your sexuality by not taking it in the arse, in the ear, and all of the other orifices that are available.
Yeah.
Presidential campaign, and I suppose
hang on, how'd you tie those together?
During this most recent U.S. presidential campaign, and I suppose I could answer that rage with some of my own.
Yeah, by going out with all the other lefties and holding massive Trump protests, and the rage. That's not where the rage came from. All the left when they lost.
Yeah, how about the rape Melania sign that was being held up outside of Trump Tower? Was it the day after or 2 days after the protest? I mean, yeah, there you go. The tolerant left. No one called that out at all.
Yeah.
No one.
But when I really think about it, it's not so much that I'm mad at them. It's that I feel sorry for them.
Oh, you.
Look at that disingenuous look on his face. This is not a man who is telling the truth at this moment. That is a pretense right there. This is a guy who's trying to invert reality, where he knows, because he has to block so many people and ignore so many comments, that he is the one being laughed at. And if anyone feels sorry for anyone, it's men who feel sorry for this emasculated whelp, Steve Shives.
Yeah. But he's also adopting this, it's my place to pity you because I'm morally superior.
Yeah.
And I'm more aware and intelligent and knowing than what you are, which is really, really great for me. But of course, it's really sad for you.
Condescending prick. Someone in there, that was a good comment. Someone wrote, that is a hostage reading a script. That's what it is like, isn't it? Shives. He's like a hostage reading a script.
Here are 5 sad things about angry white men. Number 1, they're ignorant. In the mid-18th century, English poet Thomas Gray wrote, "Where ignorance is bliss, 'tis folly to be wise."
You can come up with half a dozen fucking philosophical, catchphrases from John Stuart Mill and Nietzsche and other people who stood up for conservative or liberal values that could make you appear just as fucking intelligent or philosophical about, he said, pulling out a quote.
You can apply it to either side. Yeah, I mean, it's something that doesn't. It's universal. It doesn't. It's not particularly applicable in this case. Anyone can make the exact same argument about Shives. It's weak.
Yeah.
And vague.
Yeah.
Gray was reflecting wistfully on the innocence of youth, but in a different context, he could easily have been describing the angry white men who formed the backbone of Donald Trump's base of support during this year's U.S. presidential election.
He even though he wasn't talking about eggs, we can turn it around and say that he could have been talking about eggs, even though he wasn't. He was actually talking.
But I mean, think about the. Yeah, I mean, but think about that. Angry white men form the backbone of Donald Trump's voting base. Look, Donald Trump got 42% of the female vote.
Yeah.
So I mean, this idea that they want to say that this was a white lash, that this was angry white men. Now you may argue the point that if you look at, say, McCain got 49% of non-college educated white men, Trump got 68%. Big swing. You could make the argument that made the difference, maybe at the margin. But you know what? After you've analysed race, education levels, income levels, you know what the most important deciding factor in how anyone voted? It's whether you're a registered Democrat or a registered Republican. If you're a registered Republican, you 80-something% chance that you voted for Trump, and if you're a registered Democrat, it's about the same percentage chance you voted for Hillary Clinton. That's what it comes down to.
Because you died in the wall to your party, and
yeah, that's right.
The concepts behind that, and the personality at the front of it is secondary.
The whole.
Go on.
No, I was just going to say that the only different thing about this time around is that there were 5 percentage points or more people in the undecided category or the independent category. That's about it. That's really the only difference. So you had more people in the undecided category, but really, again, people just voted along party lines for the most part. And you can dissect it all these different ways from Sunday, but the idea, these very simplistic ideas that, well, white men won it for Trump. Well, not really. They couldn't win it without the white women, and they couldn't win it without the 30% of Latinos and the 20% of black men that voted for Trump. You can't, if you exclude any of those groups, you pretty much lose. So it's silly talk.
Yeah, look, a lot of the thing I find about this too is this anti-white rhetoric, apologist guilt trippers coming from white people. Is if you turn everyone against whites and make them racist effectively, and promote hatred against whites because you perceive them as being privileged, you're Steve Shives, you're white yourself. So when you create this, you're successful in creating this race war where you're going to pit all other races against actually effectively people that are like you. Who do you think is going to fall? Do you think it's going to be white guys that go, fuck you, we're going to fight back? Or do you think it's these white emasculated fucking pussies that are basically weak and are going to go, you're going to be the first into the fucking cauldron?
Yeah. You won't be first. You'll be second, though. Like, they'll get all the ones that were opposed, and then the ones like you that went along with it, you'll be second. You'll be second in line. They will come for you too, dickhead. But you're sowing the seeds of your own demise.
The other thing I find about it is we're in a war of the world scenarios, and the Russians and the Martians fucking come and basically go, and we're going to take over your planet. It's like this guy standing up and going, well, I side with the Martians.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, we know what.
I'm not going to stand by my own, my own species, my own planet. The Martians haven't ruined their environment. So I stand with them. What's fucking wrong with you?
I think the jig is up, and the left haven't figured this out yet, that people have seen through identity politics. And we know what this is about. The moment you utter white supremacy, white privilege, and all this thing, this is just an excuse for you to be racist. That's all it is. It's an excuse for minorities. And they've already tried to define it away. Racism equals privilege plus power. That is not the case. That comes from an article that one guy wrote back in the 90s, and it got popularized. I've got a paper that broke down this process. Somebody sent it to me.
And what they did was they turned. Yeah, I've read that too, and they turned the equation around. They said they basically said no. What was it? Power. What was it again? When you said
privilege. Power plus privilege. Power plus privilege.
Yeah. What was the whole equation?
That's it. That racism equals power plus privilege, because you've got to have because that you've just defined away any minority. That means you can't. A minority can never be.
And he turned it around and he went, privilege equals power plus racism. He did it that way to basically say, and that's what you guys employ. That's how you justify. That's how you justify your racism.
That's a great way of doing it. Just rearrange the equation to backwardly engineer the result. It doesn't make any sense, and it's a deliberate attempt to say, yes, I'm a minority, so I'm allowed to be racist, and you can't be, because you are inherently the only people who can be racist because you're all privileged. And of course, which is so dumb to say that you're white. It's like that stupid Michelle Obama comment where, like, white men making deals on golf courses. Yeah, like, that's the reality for most white men. They're out there making business deals on golf courses. It's just so fucking ridiculous. I mean, the biggest group of
bring race into it all at all is racist. It doesn't matter what caveats or fucking excuses you attach to it. So, as soon as he's angry white men and all of that, he's effectively he's just two things. He's a fucking huge sexist. He's a huge racist. Yeah,
I think Ben Shapiro said it right. He said the only kind of privilege out there is decision privilege. You have the privilege to make all kinds of decisions. You make bad decisions, you get yourself in jail. It's not about your fucking skin color or you made a bad decision. Just because you're poor doesn't mean you have to hold up a liquor store.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. No one put a gun to your head. You can make a decision not to do that.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, because we have free will, choice.
Yeah.
Choices that can be made in life.
It's not just what these men don't know that makes it sad. It's what they are happy to not know. They are extremely skeptical of science.
Projection.
It's funny that the left really think that they deal in facts and evidence, and the right ignores it. I mean, you know where this comes from, because there is an element of the right, the conservative, the Christian right, that has traditionally done that, eschewed facts and appealed to superstitious, faith-based.
Yeah.
But most of that has been sort of pushed down to a great degree. And today, as I think Jonathan Haidt demonstrates this very well, that because you have such a complete lack of political diversity on campuses, that the idea that you argue for your positions doesn't need to be done anymore, because everyone already holds the same position. So you don't have to argue your position, you just assert it. And anyone who doesn't agree with that is just a bigot, because to people on the left, it's self-evident that they're right. They don't even have to prove it. They don't have to make arguments, because you've been through a university system where you would never even heard the other arguments of the other side, which goes completely against John Stuart Mill's ethos. If you haven't even heard the arguments of the other side, then you have no business arguing the other side of the case. Doesn't matter how good your case is. If you don't know what the arguments of the other side are, then you're just as ignorant, right? So it's absolutely they've created the ultimate echo chamber, and yet they throw shit at the right, saying they live in an old echo chamber. They don't know the facts. It's just stunning.
Again, you've heard me say this in stream before, that I really believe that all conservatives need to do is disentangle themselves from the traditional idea of Christendom to be able to hold up a patriarchal and moral value system, not because it's intrinsically tied in with the supposed existence of God or the promotion of religion, but just because it's a fundamental human thing, that it's the right thing to do, and individual liberties and those, and that way, if they can completely remove the superstitious element from the notion that conservative values are good because they're inherently good, and not because the superstitious sugar daddy fairy god fucking told me to.
Yeah, and they're demonstrably good. Like, you know, yeah. I mean, you don't have to invoke God. You can just point to the evidence, for example, that marriage is the best way to raise children. That's what all the evidence says. Kids that come from a two-parent home of a mother and a father do best. This is not up for debate. This is just a fact. We have decades of data on this. And that is a conservative Christian value. You don't have to invoke God or superstition. It works. That's why you invoke the value. We know it works. We've got data on it.
Yeah. And this white man thing and all of this identity politics, fucking racial, particularly the racial bullshit. Again, my big problem with it is that, you know, Western civilization and white people are the only civilization to give other races their emancipation.
Yeah.
And include them.
I remember,
body. Even if it was a slow process, it was done slowly but surely. But the basic principles of individual rights and freedoms of man extends to all men, no matter what their skin color. And it was white people that fought for it, to put it in place, to do away with slavery, to make it fair for everyone. And then basically, you know, it just reeks of this give an inch, take a mile. Mentality. You know, you let us in the door, and so we're just going to fucking overrun you and take over your house and kick you out. Everything you fucking built. Yeah. And the idea was to include everyone, not just to fucking hand it over to you, because you don't know what to do with it. You didn't make it. You didn't make emancipation. You didn't build fucking Western society. You didn't build fucking technology and superstructures and all of it, and roads and all of it. You didn't fucking build it, but you just want to usurp it and take it over. Fuck off.
It's great. I mean, you have people, you know, tweeting out, you know, about white supremacy and white privilege and all that. And it's okay. Can you close down your Twitter account and give your phone back?
Yeah,
because you know, yeah. Do you get this is what white Western democratic societies and institutions gave you, created for you. So can you give your phone back? Can you give your car back? Can you stop straightening your hair, bitch? Because that now you're culturally appropriate. Actually, can you give my comb back? Because you didn't invent that either. By the way, what did you invent? Anything? Yeah. I mean, Australian Aboriginals couldn't even invent a fucking wheel. So, you know, that's what I love about, you know, all these victim groups. It's like, yeah, we want to harp on about the persecution of the past that no one alive today even participated in, and enjoy all the creature comforts that your society created for us, but make you feel guilty and pay reparations for crimes that you weren't part of. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. How about you fuck off back to your campfires and draw some fucking dot paintings on the wall? How about that?
Yeah, exactly. Just take it away, or no trips to Centrelink for you.
Except when they perceive it to reinforce their pre-existing biases. They care little to nothing about the experiences of people different than they are. Their knowledge of history is narrow, shallow.
But neither should we care about the personal histories of other people's experiences. It isn't important, like if we're having a chat about, tell me about your childhood and where you grew up, then your personal experience is important in that context. But if we're talking about broad social issues, your identity, this is the problem. Your identity shouldn't matter, right? It doesn't matter. Speaking as a black woman, fuck you. Get to the point. Speaking as a black woman is a meaningless statement devoid of content. What is your opinion? That's it.
Yeah, but it's also too. It's got a lot of that. I'm just trying to think of an example. Let's say, my grandfather was born in Italy in Rome, and he came out here fleeing the Second World War or whatever. And I'm a third or fourth generation Australian. And then you say, okay, well, have you ever laid eyes on the Colosseum? Oh, well, no, I've never been actually back there. So what do you actually know about Rome? What do you know about the experience of living in Rome that your grandfather, that you're trying to refer, that you're like the reincarnation of him? What do you know about Rome? And the answer is you actually don't fucking know anything because you've never been there.
Yeah.
So you may as well not even say that you were, you may as well not even bring the Italian thing into it because you've never even fucking been there. You get the idea of sort of what I'm trying to promote there. The thing that I find really offensive about what he says here is, and their knowledge of history. No one has a worse knowledge of history than the fucking left.
Yeah.
Than the regressive left. The regressive left, or white fucking slavery, when it actually can be established that some minuscule percent of the population owned slaves, that slaves were actually traded by black people from their, they were being rounded up by their own people to be sold to the Europeans. That the Europeans wouldn't have thought of slave trading if they hadn't come along and seen the Muslims doing such a fucking good job of it, right? All of these things that whites were enslaved in the Arab slave trade, millions of them for 1,500 years, whereas the black man was a slave to the white European for 300 years. Don't fucking talk.
The history of slavery is basically white people enslaved black people. That's how they see it. They have no idea about the history of slavery, that white people are the first ones to bring it to an end, the British. It's just so complete ignorance.
Yeah, for him to say that they've got no, and the people from the right, they've got no idea about history. I just want to smack him straight, I just want to smash him through this monitor, as I said in the let's hear him say that again. Here we go.
Of people different than they are. Their knowledge of history is narrow, shallow, and warped by the narratives of conspiracy theorists.
But here's the thing about that. I mean, these people make this argument that Jonathan Haidt, again, I'll go back to him. He made this argument that this idea that studies were broadened out in the 90s. So now you've got ethnic studies. Now you've got different historical perspectives from different groups, black people, Latinos, whatever it is. He said, this is actually good. It adds to a body of perspectives. But the problem is instead of that being sort of an add-on to the history that we already know and peripheral, they've made that central, and they've discarded everything. Like you have those stupid women going around Australia. I don't know if you saw this a while ago, where they were saying, stop reading old white men or dead white men.
Plenty of that.
It's just such resentment that, I mean, the fact is that the most prosperous societies were brought about by white men. It's a fact, and it's resentful. I think people feel it's an inferiority complex playing out as a superiority complex. It's classic fucking Freudian, projection.
And I suppose the other thing there is, they basically, it's not even that they've come in and replaced or created this core value. They've come in and made it the only value. And so every time I hear the word diversity come out of their mouths, I think you are the least diverse people walking on the planet because you're racist, bigoted, sexist towards everyone that isn't like you and think just like you.
Think about the SBS in Australia. Think about the SBS. People don't know who are not from Australia. The SBS is a government-funded TV station, and it's all about representing basically minority communities. And again, the idea is not a horrible one. It's sort of, like there'll be a Greek hour and there'll be something else and for all these kinds of things. But of course, they pitch themselves as diverse. But the thing is, what diversity means to them is that you have people of all different races, ethnicities, and religions, all with the same opinion. That's the problem. And so you don't have diversity because diversity, you hear of people often say, studies show that having a diverse workforce is better for your corporate culture. Yeah, but what did they mean by diversity in those studies? Because diversity means diversity of opinion. It doesn't mean diversity of skin color. It doesn't mean diversity of ethnicity. It doesn't mean diversity of religion.
That's what I was going to say.
Diversity.
There's no diversity of opinion because basically they're all, they're all going, white people are scum, white people are scum, white people are scum. So there's no diversity. They've all got the same opinion. White people are scum.
Yeah. And I think, what was it, General fucking George Patton? What did he say? When everybody's thinking the same, then nobody's thinking, something like that. If everybody's thinking the same, then there's not much thinking going on, something like that.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I think it was
close. Yeah.
I don't know. Is it Patton? I think it might have been. Yeah. I'll just Google it here.
I'll let this play while you look it up to see who said it.
Yeah.
Almost goes without saying that number 2, they're easily led.
That's what I like to hear. I like to hear a sheep telling me that the people from my side are easily led.
Here it is, George Patton. If everybody is thinking alike, then somebody isn't thinking.
Oh, yeah, I have heard that. I didn't know it was him that said it. Well, one of my favourites that's almost like that is the thing about common sense is it's just not that common.
Yeah.
Easily. Often, right-wing politicians and pundits are constantly manipulating white male voters with narratives about liberals coming to take their guns, immigrants stealing their jobs.
Well, if anybody's pushing the whole coming with narratives, it's you guys. And yes, you're coming with this narrative to try and take everyone's guns. And yes, the influx of illegal immigrants takes away jobs. So they're not narratives.
They're not unfounded beliefs, are they? I mean, think about in the wake of the nightclub shooting, the Muslim guy that shot up a nightclub in where was it?
Orlando.
Where did that happen?
Orlando.
Now, what was the left's reaction? What was Hillary Clinton's reaction? She talked about gun control. She didn't talk about Muslims. She didn't talk about Islam. She talked about gun control. So, do you think people on the right had some basis for the idea that the left is coming for their guns? I think they do, and it's not like that was the first time. They've been arguing it for all kinds of things. I mean, it's just another reason why. I mean, you won't address the elephant in the room, Islam. Someone was motivated, stated clearly his motivation was Islam. You're not going to mention that at all, and you're going to talk about gun control.
And what's that left?
And
that left guy's name, is it Piers Morgan? Is that his name? Piers?
Yeah, the British guy.
Yeah, I'm not sure where he's from. I thought he was American. I haven't watched too much of his stuff, but I was sure it was him that was. He was in a sort of debate, or he had Ben Shapiro on his show.
Ben Shapiro fucking just reamed him, didn't he?
Yeah, well, I don't remember exactly if it was directly after the Orlando shooting, but it was definitely about gun control.
It was Sandy Hook, I think.
It could have been after Sandy Hook, and Shapiro basically went, you just want to take the guns away. I'm paraphrasing. You just want to take the guns away because what you're doing, you're standing on the graves of the children that were killed and all of that.
Yep.
It probably was Sandy Hook. And Morgan was fucking livid. He was going, how dare you? How dare you?
Yeah,
so
and that's all he had, wasn't it? That's
Shapiro
all he
went, I don't care about your feelings. I don't care about how you feel about it.
Exactly.
Yeah, just completely
completely fucking
and that's what they do as part of that virtue signaling thing. I thought it was a pretty harsh. I agree, it was a really harsh thing that he said, and I can understand why the other guy got upset about it. But it doesn't take away from the fact that it's got a large element of truth to it.
Absolutely. You called him on it. It's that typical. Ben Shapiro is great because he sees straight through it. He sees the soapbox. He sees the typical leftist thing to do is to establish that you're morally superior, and anyone that disagrees with you must be some kind of bigot. That's exactly what they do off the bat. And Ben Shapiro, he's aggressive. He goes straight after him and says, no, you're not going to pull that shit on me. I know what you're doing. You're standing on the graves of fucking children to lecture everybody else, and I'm not having it. That's exactly how you're supposed to go after these assholes. Expose them for the hypocrites they are.
Yeah, and to promote your own ends and effectively exploiting, the deaths of these children just because it's your topic, it's what you want to see happen, Yeah. So let's
labor unions destroying industry or welfare recipients bleeding their country dry.
Oh, yeah, there's one with a lot of truth in it.
Yeah, again, have you not seen the national debt of your country, Steve? Do you not think entitlement reform in your country? For some reason, I think the left actually doesn't understand. Like, they talk about the government and the government's money. There's no government money. It's your money and my money. We pay the taxes. There's no government money. Every time a welfare benefit is paid, it is being taken from somebody who pays tax and given to somebody who doesn't. That's how it works. I think leftists believe that there's some kind of bottomless pit of government money that just comes up from, a wellspring from the earth or something, or it just falls off the fucking trees. They don't seem to get how it works. Sorry. Rant over. Oh, have you dropped out, Gaz? Or have I dropped out? What's going on there? Can anyone hear me? Can anyone hear me? Because I can't hear Gary. Don't know what's happening there. I hear you, BOD. Gary dropped. Righto. So I don't know what's going to happen there. Maybe Gaz is going to, unless he's muted himself, because the stream is obviously still going. So I'm just going to type in the group chat in that stream, see if Gaz knows that he's muted. All right. Well, that's not particularly entertaining, is it? Is it, audience? Can't hear Independent Man either. All right, so we're both fucked. Oh, no. Chaser says he hears me. He muted himself so he can beat one out. Well, he didn't have to mute himself. We could listen to him bash one out. I mean, I'm not. I wouldn't want to be in the room with him, but look, I could handle it. I don't know about you guys. I can hear independent men. So it looks like I'm all right. What's happened to Gaz? I'll check my Twitter and see if he's twatted at me. No, maybe he just had a stroke. Just fell the fuck over. Playing around. That means this is lag. Yeah, I don't know if it's lag because you'd hear him sort of roboting out. But he's not roboting. He's just completely gone. Steve Shives. Steve blocked Gary. Oh, that could be it. Yeah. Shives has put out a hit on Gaz. I mean, Steve, someone should, I mean, I could do a video on this, I suppose. Somebody should do a case study on Steve Shives on how to destroy. Dave Cullen brought this up a while back, that if you go back and have a look at some of Steve Shives' videos from 3 or 4 years ago, he'll do like a critique of a movie. And it's actually not bad. It's kind of decent. I don't know what happened to him. His wife secretly removed his balls one night while he was sleeping. I don't know. He is, as I said before, he's a male. I don't know what happened to him. Oh, here we go. Gaz says he's trying to reconnect. I don't know if he's going to have to disconnect this this stream to do it. But if anyone has a theory out there on what was the breaking point for Steve Shives, if any, I never followed him, but if maybe some people out there followed him, maybe they know the crossover point, what happened. Maybe he just thought he was jumping onto a trend. He thought being a white knighting for feminists was a good idea, and it's just sort of blown up in his face, and instead of admitting it, he just doubled down. His wife happened to him. Yeah, how long's he been married, though? Has he been married long time, or? I don't know. I thought his wife looked kind of like a tranny. Did anyone else think that? She kind of had a bit of a tranny look to her. Yeah, I did watch that video when they discussed their book and CD collections, and I mean that's the famous one where people say, "Look how fucking emasculated this tool is." But I wonder how long he's been married, and is it just a case that she wore him down, or she got in his ear and said, "Come on, Steve, you've got to come over to the dark side." They had that chat. She sat there with the black glove extended, and she said, "No, I am your father. Come over to the dark side. I feel the hate in you." Is that what happened?
Am I back?
She beats him. You are back.
Oh.
How about that?
But I ended up, I don't know what happened. I was there, everything happy as fucking Larry. All of a sudden, my computer just would not do it. I actually ended up having to restart the whole computer. I couldn't send you a message. I couldn't do anything, mate. Thanks for holding in there and talking to people while I was lost in space, so to speak.
I don't know if I tried to broach the topic of how I was just saying that if you go back, and Dave Cullen, because I never really followed Shives, I didn't know his sort of his timeline, but Dave Cullen sent me a couple of videos of his from 3 or 4 years ago, and he actually did decent videos. Like he would critique a movie, and he would do an honest critique of it, and he would talk about political correctness and things like in a critical way. And then something happened to Shives somewhere along the line, whether it was like a commercial decision to jump on the feminist politically correct bandwagon because he thought it would make him popular or something like that. Maybe.
I think
maybe it was part of that whole atheism plus movement, because he was part of that.
That's what I was going to say. Trading one religion for another, basically. He calls himself an atheist, but he's not an atheist at all. I saw a video where he was talking about how he became an atheist and the rejection of his father's imposition of Orthodox Methodist fucking religion upon the family, and but. When Michael Apted made the 7 Up series? What did he say? Give me the child at 7, and I will give you the man, or something like that. Sorry, I see Gunny was saying up here that the reason I was kicked out of my own stream was because it was Putin. The Russians hacked me.
Yeah, and Trump told him to.
Yeah, that was it. Fucking hell. So now I was, I suppose now I need to fucking try and find this, the rest of this video. So of course, because I had to restart my computer,
But that whole Atheism Plus thing, I mean, you would have seen if you watched Thunderfoot. Thunderfoot has made numerous videos sort of documenting the decline, like documenting his rise of popularity and the amount of views he gets on his channel compared to freethoughtblogs.com, which is sort of the genesis of this stupid Atheism Plus politically correct move to turn atheism from just a rejection of the belief in a God to be inclusive and LGBT conscious and all this kind of fucking horse shit. And they completely sold out, and they've completely destroyed it. I mean, that whole atheist congregation that they have every year or every couple of years or whatever, it's just now a complete farce. It's only a couple of hundred people, and it's instead of tens of thousands like it started out. I mean, this is why I have, as an atheist, I've never been more kind of contemptuous of my own kind. Because a lot of these social justice assholes, to them, atheism seems to be sort of another way to assert moral superiority. Like, I'm smarter than you because I've figured out there's no God, which to me, it was never that. It was, look, I'm an atheist because I believe in evidence. There's no evidence for supernatural claims. I can appreciate Judeo-Christian values without having to accept the pseudoscience and the supernatural bullshit that goes along with it. But I'm not going to hold myself there as arrogantly, morally, and of a higher intelligence. But that seems to be the way these social justice atheist assholes carry on. And I'm ashamed. You have a certain guilt by association, don't you? In some ways.
Well, not me personally, because I'm good. I suppose I'm in that belief system that I'm not responsible for the actions of my forefathers and people that lived before me. If my great grandfather was a rapist, it's got fucking nothing to do with me.
I don't mean that I feel guilty. I mean that you are.
Or us as a
assumed,
society, that
guilt by association. Like I don't feel personally guilty, but you're associated with those kind of people.
And that's the problem, is that a lot of them do. They do actually feel that guilt by association, like within themselves, and try to project that guilt onto you so that you feel the same guilt that they feel unjustly, I suppose. Mate, are you seeing Chives again on the screen? Is that sharing?
Yep.
Okay. I think it's actually reloaded where it was.
Yeah, you should do that. Yeah.
Well, I think it has. Oh, hang on.
If you go to the end of the white line, the sort of highlighted line there, that's about
many fellow cisgender white men see it on a daily basis on the internet. You saw it during this most recent U.S. presidential campaign. And I suppose I could answer that rage with some of my own. But when I really think about it, it's not so much that I'm mad at them.
Sorry, that was stuff we saw before.
Why is it that no one cares when men are abused? Or President of the United States, in addition to their aforementioned ignorance, there's also the fact that, number 3, they're insecure.
You're fucking insecure. Not us. We're not insecure. We know who we are. We're not insecure. You're just trying to use that as a way to try and belittle us and try and make out that we secretly we don't want to admit to society that our penis is really small. It's all crap.
Yeah. Yeah.
For generations, white men have been told that women's liberation, racial equality, LGBTQ equality, and multiculturalism are going to destroy their way of life.
Yeah.
No, but again, like there's let's take the bakery example where sued for $300,000 or $400,000 because they wouldn't bake a cake for a couple of lesbians. Now, this is a legitimate concern because I'm like you, Gaz. I'm fine with gay marriage, but what I'm not fine with is you now demanding that I bake you a cake or that you preside over my wedding if I'm a priest, or that I demand that I get to use your church. If Christians don't want their church to be used for gay marriage, now I can disagree with Christians and say I think that's bigoted, but I cannot disagree with your right to be a bigot or to just adhere to your own personal beliefs. Your personal freedoms trump, as far as I'm concerned, unless you're physically harming someone or inciting violence against someone, but you're not.
Yeah.
The lesbian couple can go down the street to the next bakery. They can get a civil celebrant to marry them in the fucking park or wherever they want. They don't have to adhere to their beliefs. It's authoritarianism.
Yeah, and we do. Our way of life is under threat in so much as we used to be allowed to sit with our legs apart on the train. We used to be allowed to call people what we wanted to call them, he or she, and not have to address them with Z or Z without the prospect of facing financial penalty. Yeah. We were allowed to say what we think. Like you just said, we were allowed to say what we thought about things actually honestly and openly without being accused of committing a hate crime and being called a racist, a bigot, a homophobe, a transphobe, a sexist, a rapist, and everything else.
Yeah. So this idea that it's an exaggeration to say you're destroying my life, but you are restricting my freedoms. You are doing things that you're not entitled to do. You're not. This idea that live and let live. I don't have to agree with you, and you know what? It's fine because you're allowed to do it. You're allowed to do it. I'm allowed to believe what I'm allowed to believe. Yeah. And as long as we're not hurting each other, that's fine.
And if you tried to take all of my freedoms away, I would. I'm speaking figuratively here, and I, by I mean we'd just kill you and eliminate you. We would just rub you out. So what you do is you take away my freedoms a little bit more mentally every day in the hope that I don't notice until one day I wake up and realize, fuck, I'm not free. This mob are completely in charge of me.
Yeah.
They've completely taken over.
Can you imagine the idea that is a reality in Canada, that if someone said to you that I would like to be addressed as Zer, and you say, look, this is I don't want to go down this path because it's too unwieldy, because then somebody else is going to come along and now I have to remember 7 pronouns just for exceptions, and look, I'm not going to do it. That you could be put in jail for that. Not in jail, but you can be fined for it. That's what the law is currently. I mean, it's. Did people not see where this comes from? I mean, hate speech. Do you know where hate speech laws? I only found this out recently. That hate speech laws came from communist Russia. They were meeting in the 50s after the Second World War. This is where this all originates from. It comes from communist thinking. They wanted to stamp out any ideas of fascism ever rising up again. This is where hate speech laws come from. It comes from a communist regime.
Yeah.
People don't. Yeah. It's insane.
History, I think it was Stefan Molyneux, however you say his name. I'm sure it was him I heard say, if history teaches us anything, it teaches us that history keeps repeating itself and only the costumes change.
Yeah.
And I think there's an element of, it might not be completely true, but certainly an element to it, because, people seem to really, as generations pass by, it's the battles of the great wars and all of that aren't passed down to them. They have no realization of it. They don't remember. They don't actually know history, blah, blah, blah. But, about the Z and the Z thing, so when I hear Z and that, sometimes I think what you're trying to do is you're trying to evolve language that Z becomes Sir.
All I hear people desperately wanting to matter and be special. And this is my way. I have no talent. I have no intelligence. I have nothing of value to offer. All I have is this faux identity, and that's what I'm going to play on.
Yeah, and I didn't earn any respect. I'm just going to demand it.
Yep, that's all it is.
They've been told that their governments are too big.
They are.
Been told that the president of the United States is secretly a foreigner who collaborates with terrorists.
He was.
Been asked rhetorical questions like, why is there no White History Month?
It's a legitimate, don't you think?
No, I think the better question is, why do you have a Black History Month? Because given Black history, you need about fucking 1 day for it. I mean, because, if we're going to do things, proportional representation, and we're going to allocate, let's say we divide up a year for history, well, black history would comprise about a day.
Yeah.
It's I mean, again, you can see that there are good intentions here, like, don't you think it'd be interesting to hear from the perspectives of slaves or ex-slaves that were writing just after slavery and hear what their take on slavery was, instead of just hearing white people who were either slave owners or lived in the North or something? Yeah, that would be interesting to hear. But it's still not... Like, it doesn't inform, for example, the great struggle of the Civil War, right? These minority voices are peripheral to the greater struggle, because if white people hadn't decided to end slavery, then none of it would matter. You'd still have slavery.
Right? Oh, you can bet that Black History Month starts with talking about the civil rights movement of the 60s. You can fucking bet that's where it starts. I haven't lived in America. I don't know. I don't go to school there. I haven't never been subjected to Black History Month. Maybe some of the American viewers could clarify that, but I bet it's all about the civil rights movement and just in the years preceding, just before that, there was segregation and all of these things, but they won't go back hundreds of years. They won't go back thousands of years. I
just have a good question. Yes. Yeah, sorry. I have a history for history. I have a question for Black people. I'd be like, slavery was awful and horrible, and we can all agree about that. The Jim Crow South was also obviously Black people. Now, would you? But and people, we were dragged from Africa as slaves and oppressed and blah blah blah. And go, I would like to ask them. So, if you could go back, because Black people today, obviously, the vast majority of them don't even remember Jim Crow. They were never subjected to that. They obviously weren't there in slavery. Would you prefer to live in the United States today, knowing what your ancestors had to go through, some of them, or that were slaves and the ones that lived in the South and were subject to those kinds of laws, or would you rather go back and live in Africa today and that slavery never happened? How many of them would be willing to say that I'd rather have wiped slavery off the map and be the descendants of people living in sub-Saharan Africa.
Yeah, because if we didn't come there, right, what you wouldn't have Twitter and a Cadillac. What you'd have is a loincloth and a spear.
Yep. And or you might live in South Africa, where the rape and murder capital of the world. Maybe you'd live there. Would you like that? It's a good question.
Yeah, and I think one thing I read in a history book that I've had for a long time, what was that this historian put forward the idea that whilst we may today find the actions of our predecessors morally reprehensible, we have to bear in mind that they were people that lived in their time and people that brought white European civilization, Christendom, whatever you want to call it, to the rest of the world. Largely, the population had a belief that they were actually bringing something good and something better to those people, and it was, at least to some extent in their hearts, they felt that it was a benevolent process that they were going through, bringing these other native peoples into the civilized world.
This is a hypocrisy of social justice atheists, because, for example, they would be the first ones to point out that you can tell the Bible or the Quran is written by man and for the time it was in. There are things in both those books that we find morally reprehensible today, right? And the say the evangelical, the biblical literalists will spin explanations for the rules governing slavery in the Old Testament, right? They'll try and spin it. But the reality is, the reason they're there is because slavery was a real thing at its time, right? And then
it was the basis of the economy. It was the only thing.
Yeah. But then
the slave economy's always been up until, as best as I know, feudalism.
Yeah.
And it's these other ideas of capitalism, liberal democracies. Democracy didn't appear until Greek times, but again, all of these things were in very raw form. The Roman Republic was the first experiment in a civilization with a republic owned by the people, but it was raw. It didn't last long. It ended up becoming imperial rule. All these competing ideas, communism and democracy and all of those things and knowing each other, that's only a recent phenomenon in human history of the last couple of hundred years. Before that, these things didn't exist. Everything was slavery.
Yeah. And so the idea that you go and then say, well, look, slavery was awful, horrible, we can all agree, but it was a thing of its time. We've evolved, we've grew out of it. We now consider it to be morally reprehensible, or at least most of the world does. And but no, we can't accept that. We have to recognize our privilege. We have to pay reparations to people. I think, again, the hypocrisy of those kind of positions is pretty obvious.
Again, they always focus on the negatives and stuff as well. Like, for example, a lot of, my understanding of the history of slavery too is that a lot of slaves, were treated quite well in different societies. They could earn their freedom after a certain amount of time in chattel slavery. There was an obligation on owners, and it was in their interest to ensure that their slaves were fed and clothed and housed. So the slave owners of all races had a lot of responsibility, and it was in their interest to their slaves. And as I said, it was a basis of the whole economy. And yes, look, there's instances where there's cruel and bad people that abused that system, but that's not. It's not always going to be representative of how everyone lived. This whole idea that everyone was subjected to daily floggings and starved and unclothed. It's just not.
Well, even in the United States, remember during the time of slavery in the North, there were educated black people. There were doctors and lawyers that were black. They largely served their own communities, but there were free time. What was their experience like? No, well, they're not the right kind of blacks. I'm guessing Black History Month doesn't talk about that. They want to talk about the oppression. That's the only thing they want to talk about.
Yeah. And look, and I can't be sure about this, but I've heard talk, and it sounds correct to me. The idea too that one of the things that sort of started to bring because effectively feudalism was a sort of a slave thing in a way, but instead of being the property of a slave owner, you were a chattel to the land type of thing, and your lord and all of that. And my understanding too is that a lot of what helped bring about the end of feudalism and make for a capitalist society was the Black Death, the bubonic plague, because it created this massive labour shortage and therefore shifted power into the hands of those that actually did the work, and they could compete for. So just being owned by the land didn't wasn't going to cut it anymore in a world where there was a labour shortage, and people could desert. They could say, I'm not owned by the land anymore because I can travel, I can go somewhere else and get more money and have a better life because I won't be rejected and starved. I'm in demand. So
yep.
Yeah, so we're about
why is it that
shots.
the only group of people not allowed to be proud of who they are white people? Or why is it that no one cares when men are abused? Or why don't they appreciate all that we've done for them?
Let's hear what his answer is, because they're all like legitimate things.
Yeah.
Despite belonging to perhaps the most privileged class of people that has ever lived, white men have been convinced that they are about to lose everything.
Well, I'm not. I've said this before. I think that men in general, not just white men, are resilient, and there's only so much of a beating that they'll take. They'll find other ways to scrape out a living. The idea that, I know it's probably bad that men's participation in university and higher education is going down, but I suggest to you that this is happening at the exact same time that university educations are being devalued, and men will find more practical ways for employment to scrape out a living, and if they have to reject marriage and women to do so, they will. And this idea that men are sort of clinging on by their fingernails, or else, they're going to be thrown under the bus and their world is going to be destroyed. It's just kind of ridiculous. I mean, if you look at trends, there's, of course, educationally, it doesn't look good for white men, but they're not doing too bad. I mean, you still hear people bleating on about fucking wage gaps and all kinds of dumb shit. White men aren't doing that badly.
Yeah. Yeah, there's also that thing too that, men are good at applying themselves to practical things. If society were to suddenly collapse and go into decay, let's just setting aside, in an anarchical situation. But if people had to become more self-reliant, a man's going to figure out how to fish, and he's going to figure out how to light a fire for himself, and those trained in human resources allocation and gender studies are probably going to find it a lot fucking harder to live and get by.
Well, that's why half of me kind of wishes a bigger financial crisis on the world than we had years ago, just so government is just forced to hack away at all the not just the welfare spending that they do, but all the government agencies and the bogus jobs, which are large. Like if you look at the Department of Welfare, or in the United States, Social Security and all this, it's primarily staffed with women useless fucking degrees in social work or whatever else. They're useless. They are no use for society. And like you said, the moment that we had to become self-reliant and people had to go out and do physical labor just to get by, these people would be fucked. They're the most dependent class out there.
Yeah, they've got no nous. It's like, you know, it's partially in a way like what Gunny says, you know, sort of weeding out the weak. You know, maybe not taking them out on a fence and lining them up and eliminating them that way, but just letting the natural course of, you know, natural selection take its course.
Yep.
Number 4, they're afraid.
Yeah, we're afraid.
Convinced that they are threatened from all sides by assorted political and social forces that are attacking their values, their masculinity, their place in history. Many of my fellow cis hetero white men aren't merely scared, they're terrified.
Yeah, you're just repeating what you said before in different words.
They fear the progress made toward equality every day by Black Americans, Latinx Americans, LGBTQ Americans, Americans who...
This is a bullshit line as well, that they're threatened by equality. It's, again, this is just an assertion. They don't say what they mean by equality. They state equality. It's not equality. Their equality is to divide people into groups and treat them differently. That's not equality. What white men see is that they're being treated unfairly. They're being discriminated against because equality of outcome demands that you treat people differently. That's what equality of outcome is.
That's right. They're not being afforded equality of opportunity. They're having their equality of opportunity taken away from them in favor of somebody else who either has a vagina or dark skin or both.
Didn't earn anything.
Yeah.
Religions other than Christianity, women, and pretty much any other group with which they can't personally identify. They fear the cultural changes that they perceive as they see the increasing popularity of films, TV shows, books, and music targeted at audiences other than them.
That's just dumb. I mean, this is so dumb. There is a legitimate, I don't know if it's a fear, but watching this pandering to minorities or books and film, I mean, why does a book or film have to be politically correct or appeal to a diverse audience? I just went and watched that Rogue One, which seems to have gotten some positive reviews. Now, spoiler alert for people out there, everyone dies in the end, and I was glad they all died because it's a shit movie. Because it's not a shit movie. It's not that bad. It's just the character development is awful. And it's all about, look, we've got a woman as the lead. We've got a black man. We've got a blind Asian man. We've got some kind of islander man, some kind of swarthy Spaniard-looking guy. And you know what? None of it matters because they don't develop any of the characters. The most interesting character in Rogue One is the fucking robot. And that's it. And the rest of the characters are shit. And this is all, and of course, the evil baddie is played by Ben Mendelsohn, and he's a white guy, and he's actually a half interesting character, but it doesn't add anything. You know, these are not people that you're rooting for. It's not like Neo in the Matrix, and you're rooting for him to win. That you don't care. And so, of course, people are watching movies and going, I can't relate to this shit because it's pandering. Yeah. It's not fear.
Yeah. And also, I don't know, it seems really artificial too when, look, I found the same thing with the token black guy in the show that was quite prevalent over the last couple of decades. To me, it was like, it used to annoy me. It was like, why don't you have two or three black guys sometimes, and then one black guy another time, and then no black guys another time, and then no white guys another time, and then it sort of, then it all sort of like looks mixed up and sort of natural. But this token black man to me is just this. It's not much different to now, where they call it diversity, but it's not. It's like you said. They've got to have an Asian guy. They've got to have a Latino. They've got to have a black guy or woman. A woman has to be in charge. It has to have a stupid white man. One guy has to be have a disability of some sort, whether he's crippled, blind, got an extra head growing out of the side of his body, or whatever it is. He's got some sort of something wrong with him. You've got to have your autistic savant type somewhere.
Well, actually, you have one of those in Rogue One, because the Asian guy's blind, but he's also like awesome with a fucking cane, and he can beat the shit out of people even though he's blind.
Oh, there you go. So that's what I mean by whether they're an actual autistic savant or whatever. It's something like that. Something like that, where they're profoundly disabled, but they shit on everybody else in fucking fucking algebra or something.
Yeah. Well, imagine today. Imagine the most successful sitcom of all time, arguably Seinfeld. Imagine pitching that story today. Imagine that coming out. It would be deeply criticized. You have 4 white people. This is a sitcom about 4 white people. Even Friends, right? The revisionists are already saying this about Friends. Oh, it's a white people show. Well, what about the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air? I used to watch that. I didn't give a shit. It was all white people.
To. Yeah. But
what about the fucking Cosbys?
Yeah, Cosby. Good. Good Times started all of that. And I used to watch Good Times and thought it was great. And the fact that the characters in it were a black family, it never meant it didn't mean anything to me. Are they funny or are they not?
Yeah.
Things, and they fear them, and perhaps most of all, they fear number 5. They're being left behind, and that is sad. It's not sad that their racism is being left behind, or their xenophobia, their religious intolerance, their homophobia, their transphobia, their misogyny, their petulant, self-centered.
Yeah, he's just reading off the bigotry bingo card. He's just reading off all the entries. This is what I was saying before about leftists. They're just lazy. They don't have any arguments. You just have to throw out the buzzwords. So if you object to anything about the so-called diversity agenda, you're some kind of bigot. That's it. You're a bigot. Yeah. I just have to assert things. That's it. Game over.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm a guy, and I'd actually really like to marry a woman. Oh, you transphobe.
Yeah, you heteronormative bigot. Yeah.
Yeah, crazy shit.
Them playing worldview. What's sad is that they are being left behind because they would rather hold on to those things I just listed than try to change.
Yeah.
Here's the challenge for you, Steve. You change. You stop. Here's your challenge. Stop being a fucking jerk and just become a regular guy. That's my challenge for you for 2017. Stop being.
Isn't that revealing about instead of changing, listen to the arrogance of that. We're demanding that you change to our values. I mean, because this is part of the problem. They're not demanding that you change, right? Yeah. You're the authoritarian. You want everyone else to adhere to your values that you think are the right ones, that you're morally superior, even though you don't really argue for them, you just assert them. And we need to conform to your ideas. And we're just saying, you know what? We don't want to change those things, and we're happy for you to do what you're doing, but stay the fuck out of my life. No, you have to change, according to Steve. You're not willing to conform to the better way that we've figured out. It's such an arrogant position to take.
Yeah. And actually history shows that, as far as, in my opinion, that we've got the better way, the liberal values, the focus, the rights of the individual being paramount. Your collectivist, communist, Marxist idea has been tried numerous times, and it just results in totalitarian societies where people have to what's the saying? Each to their ability, as to each to their needs. Everybody's ability is as much as they can possibly put out without working as hard, without falling down dead, and each of their needs is as little as possible to keep them alive. And totalitarian governments have just killed millions and millions of people. Why can't we just stay in the system where everybody has their individual rights and everybody's free? Why does it have to progress? Why do we have to? And again, no wonder they call it regressive, because you're going basically back to things that were tried before and numerous times and have failed numerous times. And it's going to be the
whole thing. Like, with just the whole communist revolution, 1919. Look at the results of that. It happened really quickly. It ripped away the family structure, right? Basic family structure, and feminism was a strong part of that. Women are equal in every single sense, and that the family kind of holds them back. That whole routine, and look, that was a complete and utter failure. And so, what did we do 45 years later in the West? Well, we just dismantled the sort of nuclear family once again. And how's that worked out? I mean, how's it worked out for the black community, especially, who has a 73% illegitimacy rate at this point? I mean, the problem is, and 50 years ago, they were 1/3 of that. They were like 25% or something. I mean, it's been absolutely horrendous. We know what works. That's why I'm fond of saying, the left, the progressives or the regressives are for revolution, but conservatives aren't opposed to change, but they prefer evolution to revolution.
Yeah.
They're willing to change, but they will change. They don't want to change things that we know that work.
Yeah.
Change is difficult. It takes effort. But it also takes effort to vainly resist every step forward that society makes.
Cockhead.
The deal is this, fellow white dudes: the future is coming. Just the same as it came for our parents and our grandparents. This is what to get back to what I said a couple of minutes ago. You're trying to make the past, the failed past, happen again. It's not. They have this notion that they're the future and they're taking things forward and they're trying these groundbreaking ideas towards emancipation that have never been done before, and this is the future. You're just repeating the failed past.
Yep.
You
don't have any new ideas.
That's not, no new ideas whatsoever.
It's coming whether you like it or not. You can live in that future, or you can live in denial. The choice is yours.
It's a binary choice. There's no shades of grey, according to Steve. You're either with us or against us. I mean, it's a veiled threat.
Yeah,
essentially.
Yeah. It's basically it's othering you.
Yep, exactly. Otherizing.
Yeah, they're just fucking never-ending hypocrites. They're the biggest racists. Like I said before, they're the biggest racists in the world that go around calling everyone else a racist. Biggest bigots in the world going around calling everyone else a bigot.
Yeah, I'm thinking about writing a book on this stuff. That there's so many just basic principles to identify leftists. Like, just the people who talk about race all the time are the biggest racists. The people who talk about sexism are the biggest sexists. You guaranteed every single time,
because they're hyper they're hyper racialized. They're hyper genderalized. Wow, that's a word. Because they're just so into it and create all of these divisions and all of that in their minds about it.
Yeah. Did you hear Mark Latham's take? And he said, like, the left has failed at economics, the left has failed at politics, and now the left is on its latest crusade, and it's sort of the only thing left is, he calls it fab, feelings and behavior. And that's what they're trying to control, feelings and behavior. I think it was a good way of putting it.
Yeah, I like
the hardest part is picking only 5. Catch you next time.
Oh, okay. Good. So,
Fuck off.
Yeah. Anyway, I think I can't fucking look at Steve anymore, I'm afraid.
Yeah, two's good enough. We powered through it.
Yeah. Now, where's my once beautiful Google Hangout window? Where's it gone? I can't see you. I can't see anything.
I can see me on the screen.
Yeah. Again, I've got no Google Hangout window. Fucking hell. How am I supposed to? Hey, here we go. It's back. Beautiful. Alrighty, man. That was pretty cool. Just for sorry I fucking dropped out and circumstances beyond my control and all that sort of shit.
I just realised that Beware of Darkness has just said, I'm glad this stream is going. It's the most fun I've had killing time before my family wakes up on Christmas morning. It's already Boxing Day here. Christmas is over.
Yeah,
in Sydney anyway.
Yeah, that's one of the things I was thinking, that I wasn't sure how many viewers we'd actually get, because I thought, if they'll be just sort of coming into their Christmas morning and everybody will have their plans and that's sort of how I came up with the name Ruining Your Christmas with Steve Shives. Rather than just another Barry's Guests or anything like that. Man, I always love fucking having chats with you, Indy, and and that our viewers might not know. You and I even catch up and talk about how to do this in YouTube and other things. We catch up regularly behind the scenes and all of that. So, you're always my first pick for somebody to stream with, because it's not just the echo chamber side of things as well. I just you've always got really good stuff to contribute and make for really interesting conversation. So again, I'm not trying to do the tongue in the back of your trousers thing, like. But
I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, you're always really interesting to have on, and you don't talk too much, and then you don't talk too little, and all of that. You've got a really good balance of opinion, but also ability to listen. So, thanks very much for coming on.
Well, just as while you're on that topic, I had a 20,000 sub Q&A, and a couple of different people asked me the question, have you thought about doing a sort of a Dave Cullen progressive news for Australia, or a Sargon's This Week in Stupid for Australia? And I explained that my take on it is that would actually be self-defeating, in the sense that if I've got 5 stories to stitch together, that's potentially 5 videos, and putting them into one video for 20 minutes fucks me with the way that YouTube is working now. But I did throw out the idea that what could be done for a sort of a weekly roundup, and I threw your name out because people were asking for Australia specifically, but it doesn't have to be just Australia. But This Week Down Under, or Stupidity Down Under, that we could do it as a stream, because it takes very little preparation. I just have to send you a mail and say, hey, let's talk about this, and this story, and I could send you a link, and then we could just discuss it for an hour or more.
Yeah.
We could do that. We could do that once a week or something, or once every 2 weeks.
My video yesterday where I did PNN, which I was only up last night, so you probably haven't had a chance to see it.
Yeah, no.
But I did how the Putin was being accused of hacking the thing and this and that, and then there was Cameron coming out and saying, Putin, through their propaganda and all of that, Russia interfered or intervened in Brexit somehow, interfering in other countries' politics. None of it evidence-based. It's all just trying to create conspiracy theory stuff. Now, that's not to deny that Putin is, fucking got where he was through being a fucking criminal and all of those different things. But it prompted me to make up a whole bunch of fake news stories about Putin, because I thought, well, if you're going to make up fake news stories about Putin, so will I. So, I've had Putin responsible for the a link to the fall of Rome. the Roman Empire. Putin is prime suspect in the John Benet Ramsey murder. And then somebody wrote in the comments, and you know, I was making up all of these mock newspaper names like True Fake News and The Daily Wank and Toilet Paper Weekly and all of these things, right? And so somebody said in the comment, you know, you should actually do this. You should do like your little fake news stories like once a week or once every couple of weeks. And I thought of that only because
like Onion.
Yeah, a bit like The Onion, but in a This Week in Stupid type of format, I suppose, where it appears once a week or once a fortnight or something like that. And I just got to thinking of it because you brought up the same idea of, you know, sort of collating those ideas together and something that's sort of done in a regular format in a regular time frame. You know?
Yeah. I think it's useful. I just like I said, I think if I've got 5 stories, and let's say 2 of them are related, so they can go together in one story, but then 3 separate stories, that could be 3 separate videos. And the way it's being made more and more difficult for individual creators. You know, you've got to put out regular content every day. Well, if I cram 5 into one good 20-minute video and I get a lot of views, but I'm better off spacing it out. And so I don't know if that, I mean, Sargon has a established huge base, but I think it's more difficult for us to do something like that and for it to work because we don't have that established base of 400,000 or 500,000 subs already.
Yeah. But you know, hopefully one day we'll get there. We'll get it. All right, mate. I'm going to wrap it up there because I haven't had, there wasn't other people in the chat, and so I haven't been able to sort of leave people chatting while I go out and have a cigarette. So I haven't had a cigarette in like 3 hours now, so I'm sort of hanging out there and maybe go and have something to eat and find out what Mrs. Orsum's up to.
Righto.
All right, thanks for coming, and thanks everyone for viewing on this Christmas. Hope Santa brought you everything you wanted. I got a really awesome present. I got this awesome shirt and some new board shorts. I was pretty happy about that.
I got a strap on.
There you go. There's something you can always.
That's what I've always wanted.
Yeah, something you can put to good use. Yeah. All right, folks. Take care. Look after yourselves.